This boy was the bastard of a royal family. Since he was a child, Johann was beaten by his brothers for being weak. That's when he learned that the only person he could ever trust was himself. After reincarnating into the body of a bastard prince, he made one decision: to become a bodybuilder. He trained by running for miles, eating insane amounts of protein, and practicing martial arts every single day. After years of brutal training, he became a monster. He could punch through trees and bring down entire forests, because with every workout, his crushing strength kept growing without limit. This world is a place where the blood of the weak is spilled, and the strong drink it down. A creature walks through a dark forest. It stops, then begins to graze on some leaves. Hidden in the brush, a hunter watches. That is his prey. He reminds himself to stay calm, to remember his training. Bowstring taut, he readies the shot, but just as he releases, the bow snaps. The sudden sound startles the animal. His companion shouts out for Lord Johann. He demands to know why Johann broke the bow instead of catching the prey. Johann replies that the bow broke too easily, but the man argues he bought it only a week ago. He asks why a noble like Johann insists on being a hunter. He suggests he could have learned swordsmanship instead. The young noble remains silent. He explains that swordsmanship doesn't pay until you're hired, then suggests they move on. He needs money to survive in this rotten world. His name is Johann Eitz, but before, he was Kim Johann. He reincarnated into this world after an accident. Though reborn a noble, he is last in his family's hierarchy. He has zero chance of inheriting anything. Suddenly, his companion stops him. Ahead of them lies a pack of wolves. His companion fires an arrow near one of the beasts. The pack scatters in fear. Johann watches silently. The world he reincarnated into is a very realistic medieval era. They find a pile of bodies. The young man comments that even death grants them no rest. His companion asks if they could be from their village. Johann says it's hard to tell, but one thing is certain: the weak are just prey for the strong, and to avoid becoming prey in this era, he needs money. When he arrived in this world, he hoped to awaken an incredible ability. He realized that didn't exist here, so he changed his goal. That goal is money. With money, he can leave this territory and do anything, become a merchant, or even a free farmer. While Johann is focused on his thoughts, his companion calls him over to see something. He points out the medicinal herb he had mentioned, Little Demon's Grass. It's rare and great for stopping bleeding. Johann immediately snatches up the herb. It must be expensive. He stows the plant away. Suddenly, the young man spots an herb pouch on the ground. He tells his companion he dropped it, but the man says it isn't his. Johann thinks that's impossible, as nobody else goes this deep into the forest. The older hunter then realizes something. A sudden sound echoes through the woods, startling both of them. They hear someone running desperately for help. The barking of wolves gets closer, putting them on alert. Then they find a child cornered up a tree by a wolf pack. His companion recognizes her as Dell, Robert's daughter. He wonders what a child is doing out here. The wolf pack approaches. Joseph warns there are too many wolves to fight alone. He suggests retreating to get help, but Johann simply advances toward them. His companion warns him these aren't ordinary wolves. The young man says he'll distract them so Joseph can rescue Dell. Joseph falls silent at the noble's attitude. He can't believe Johann is offering himself as bait to save a simple commoner. Johann then realizes this place is a gold mine. He should have hurried to learn hunting. He counts at least 10 wolves. He calculates that if he sells all the pelts, he'll make a fortune. Then, he shouts for his precious sources of money to wait for him. The older hunter doesn't understand what's happening. Johann draws his sword. His companion questions what kind of messy swordsmanship that is. The animals rush to attack him. He moves quickly. One of the wolves leaps at him. It bites down on the blade of his sword. The sword shatters after the wolf bites it. The animal recoils from the impact, surprising Johann. Then another wolf attacks from the side. He is quickly surrounded by the pack. Joseph watches the scene, calling for his lord. He desperately screams Sir Johann's name. Meanwhile, in Baltroden village, the Eitz family is conducting their territorial inspection. Villagers bow as the entourage passes. A man shields a child in his arms. Madame Eitz, the concubine, complains about the place's bad smell. The first son, Philip Eitz, remains silent. Gezen Eitz, the lord of the territory, also complains about how the countryside stinks. Philip informs his father that Johann hasn't been found. He suggests sending soldiers to search for him. Gezen reacts angrily at the mention of the name. He says to forget the boy. He doesn't care if he dies like his mother. Lord Gezen continues to laugh mockingly. He stops suddenly when he spots something. Gezen asks about a large hay bale at the village entrance. A villager explains they covered the traces of Johann's training. The lord scoffs. He continues mocking, questioning how a pathetic insect could even train. But his expression changes completely when he looks at what the hay was hiding. Gessen sees the mark of a fist perfectly embedded in a tree trunk. Then he notices several other surrounding trees have been destroyed in the same way. Back in the forest, Johann is on the ground, surrounded by the wolf pack. One wolf growls but hesitates before biting. Realizing sword fighting isn't his style, he throws the animal aside. He then challenges his lovely money sources to attack him. Now he will fight his own way. To not become prey in this era of survival of the fittest, he needs money. And to earn that money, he knows he must defeat the pack, advance advancing toward him. He needs overwhelming strength, enough to transcend human limitations, and with a flurry of punches, he attacks the pack. Joseph watches the scene, paralyzed. The blows hit the wolves squarely. He launches one away along with others. He grabs another creature by the neck and finishes it with a precise strike. The animal falls lifeless to the ground. His companion can barely believe that strength. Johann stands amidst the fallen wolves, and he wonders how much all of this is worth. Johann had no choice but to accept a hard truth. Life in this world wasn't easy. His high-ranking brothers branded him an illegitimate, motherless bastard. They tormented him constantly, beating him whenever they pleased and threatening him if he dared to fight back. He soon realized just how merciless this world was. No one would care if he died. The only person he could count on was himself. So he asked himself what he needed to survive in a medieval world. Fortunately, he held an advantage over the people of this era, his past life as a modern student. Because of this, Johann's mind harbored knowledge that medieval people couldn't even imagine. He decided to use that knowledge, starting with exercise science and high-intensity interval training. He also utilized it to create a nutritionally balanced diet from foods others discarded as trash. The young man created a training regimen based on modern science and practiced close-quarters martial arts. And so, his continuous training compounded over time. After several years, his effort showed results. He continued to strike the tree. Finally, the tree gave way, snapping from the impact. With every session, his body displayed even more overwhelming strength. He felt invigorated. No one knew if that strength was a blessing or a new challenge. The sound of battle in the forest finally ceased. Johann dusted off his hands. He looked at the defeated wolves and confirmed that seemed to be the last of them. Joseph checked on Dell, and the girl hugged him. The older hunter sighed. He scolded Sir Johann for being reckless, questioning him about the danger he had courted. But he admitted he was moved by Johann's honorable action, stepping in front of a beast to save the young servant girl. Johann, however, was only wondering which wolf pelt would sell for the highest price. He asked what Joseph had said, but the man replied it was nothing. Then, the young man turned to Dell to ask if she was okay, and the girl thanked him. Suddenly, her expression changed. Behind them, a giant creature emerged from the darkness. They turned to face the new threat, and the girl covered her face. The creature stared straight at them. The giant creature growled at Johann. Joseph yelled that it was a monster. He insisted Sir Johann run, claiming a monster of that size required an entire army to defeat. Johann just asked if the creature was their leader. He apologized for killing its subordinates, explaining that wolf pelts sold for a good price. The creature continued to growl. He realized the monster viewed him as prey. It lunged, mouth open for the attack. Johann said it didn't matter what it was. With a rock in hand, he declared that the monster's hide would be worth even more. He struck the creature's head with the stone. The monster recoiled from the wound. Johann complained about scratching the hide, lamenting that the price would drop. The creature glared at him with fury. It unleashed a howl that echoed through the forest. The creature's howl affected everyone. They immediately covered their ears. Johann also reacted to the piercing sound. He wondered what that was. He realized his strength was draining away. Suddenly, a fierce battle erupted in the clearing. Johann fell to the ground, completely disoriented. Sitting up, he tried to understand what had happened. He looked around, wondering where the monster was. Then he realized the creature had disappeared. He spotted Joseph and Dell lying on the ground. Approaching them, he saw they were all safe. He lifted Joseph onto his back, saying they needed to return quickly before other monsters appeared. He started moving away from the scene. As he walked, he regretted not being able to take the wolf pelts he wanted so badly. The night continued in the silent forest. As he approached, he noticed the village was still lit up. He wondered if everyone was looking for Dell, hoping to score points with her father. He imagined his father naming him successor for defeating a wolf pack, but he dismissed the idea, hoping they would at least appoint him to the guard so he wouldn't have to worry about food anymore. Suddenly, he stopped, noticing something. A torch lit the darkness ahead. He encountered his father's inspection retinue blocking the path. Johann didn't understand what was happening. Philip Eitz yells Johann's name. He furiously demands to know why Johann missed their father's inspection. Johann suddenly realizes he completely forgot about the commitment. Gessen Eitz rides closer, calling Johann an immature bastard. He dismounts, planting his feet firmly on the ground. Holding the unconscious Dell, Johann tries to explain his absence to his father, but Gessen tells him to shut up. Gessen raises his axe. He threatens to crush Johann's skull for daring to ignore him. The young man stares at the ground for a moment. Then, he looks up. Johann declares he didn't miss the inspection on purpose. He was saving people in the forest. A man from the crowd rushes forward, recognizing little Dell. He embraces the child, grateful she is safe, saying he looked everywhere for her. The man keeps hugging Dell, repeating how happy he is to have found her. Johann points and explains that the girl was surrounded by wolves in the forest, and he fought to defeat them. Before the villagers, he concludes that although he missed the inspection, he fulfilled his duty as the son of a knightly house. He bows in apology, promising to continue doing his best for the estate's safety. Johann even suggests it would be great if his father gave him the position of captain of the guard. He smiles, believing his self-promotion was perfect. Gazen questions the story, demanding to see the dead wolves as proof. Johann insists he isn't lying. He claims he even encountered the great black wolf. The villagers watch the exchange. Gazen's mouth falls open. He accuses Johann of lying and threatens to rip his mouth off. Johann asks for a duel, agreeing to prove his skills. He turns away, realizing he has no other choice. Gazen accepts with a grin, saying he'll see just how skilled the boy really is. He orders Johann to raise his sword for a duel involving only weapons. Johann stares back, repeating the question about fighting with a weapon. It dawns on him that his father never taught him how to use one. Father and son face off in the arena's center. Gessen orders him to draw his sword. Johann reveals his broken sword hilt. Gessen then orders Philip to lend Johann his blade. Philip approaches, advising Johann to beg for forgiveness. It's the only way he'll leave alive. Johann refuses. He insists he did nothing wrong, and a man doesn't run. He pushes his brother aside, grips the new sword, and prepares for the duel. Gazen adjusts his helmet for combat. Facing his father, Johann focuses, determined to prove his worth. He charges into the attack. Gazen watches with wide eyes. Johann moves with overwhelming force. His sword strikes Gazen's axe head-on. The blade shatters from the impact. A shard flies off, striking Johann in the head. Gazen falls back, still clutching his weapon. He glares at his son with gritted teeth. Gazen advances with the axe, calling Johann a parasite. Johann leans back from the force of the blow. Philip declares that Johann insulted the Lord. A villager comments that Gazen truly intends to kill him. Gazen attacks again, yelling that he never taught Johann swordplay because he's useless. He presses the attack, claiming Johann will never surpass him. Gazen shouts that the estate is his and no one, not even the emperor, can take it. Johann stares back as blood runs down his face. Blood from the forehead wound drips into his eyes. Philip screams Johann's name. Gazen strikes with the side of the axe handle toward Johann's face. The crowd watches. Johann blocks the blow with his sword hilt, which begins to crack under the force. The hilt shatters into pieces. He looks at his father and admits defeat. Johann kneels before Gazen, scattered sword fragments surrounding him. Gazen approaches and tells him to know his place. He threatens Johann, saying that if he sees him again, he really will crush his skull. Gazen turns and leaves, abandoning Johann kneeling alone in the arena. The crowd surrounds him, and a villager calls his name. Far away in a church, a voice declares that Sir Gazen's actions were unjust. Inside, Johann tells the speaker to keep his voice down, but the priest shouts that he doesn't care, as he is from the Vatican. He continues, questioning how Gazen could treat his own son that way. Johann, his head bandaged, insists he is alive and fine. The priest complains that it was ridiculous. The young man looks away. He leans against a table, lamenting. Even though he never learned swordplay, he didn't realize he was this powerless. The priest consoles him, explaining it makes sense that he lost. Sir Gessen is battle-hardened and inherited the family techniques. He recounts a rumor that Sir Eitz once killed 300 soldiers alone on a neighboring estate, impressing Johann. Johann comments on the importance of technique. He adds that he thought he could defeat his father, since he faced a massive black wolf. The priest turns sharply toward him. He grabs Johann, demanding to know if it's true he saw a black wolf in the forest. Johann confirms the story, adding that Joseph and Dell saw it too. The priest reacts with alarm. Johann asks what the problem is with the wolf. The priest turns away, pulling a book from a shelf. He opens it in front of Johann. The priest explains that black wolves have long been considered taboo, an omen of death. Ancient stories say they bring death and bloodshed. Johann says he doesn't believe that, but supposes the wolf might have harbored his duel with his father. The priest reassures him not to worry. They are just old tales. He suggests perhaps God is helping Johann because he is a good person. The priest concludes that Johann is someone who puts others before himself, making Johann smile. Johann questions this. The scene pulls back to a night view of the estate. The narrative shifts to the Brits' barony, near the Eitz lands. Cries for help and pleas for mercy echo through the night. A woman clutching a child begs for her life. Both are seen in their final moments. A trail of blood spreads through the darkness. A hand falls lifelessly onto the dirt. One soldier asks why they try to run. Another replies they'll die anyway, noting the cruelty of it all. A third soldier questions the order to kill everyone and burn the bodies, then decides he doesn't care. They are just doing their job for the gold. Two figures meet before a large burning gate. A man kneels before Sir Karamov, reporting that the mercenaries are finished. He hands over the Brits' family signet ring. Karamov simply repeats the family name. She comments that she had high expectations for Brits, but he didn't last 2 attacks. Karamov then introduces herself as the Sword of the Holy Empire and the representative of Her Imperial Majesty. As the seal collector, she decrees that she will punish all corrupt nobles according to the Emperor's wishes. She promises that all who stand with the Emperor will be rewarded with gold and honor. Karamov points forward, ordering her troops to kill, loot, and burn everything. Her army advances, declaring the Eitz estate is next. On a battlefield, two figures trade sword blows. Blades clash dangerously close to a warrior's helm. A knight in full plate blocks an attack. His hooded opponent parries in return. The swords lock together violently. A swift move rips the helm from the hooded warrior. Blood sprays out into the darkness. The empty helmet rolls across the stone floor, revealing the man's bloodied face. His eyes suddenly snap open. Johann jolts upright in bed, gasping. He's alone in his room. Hand to his face, he wonders if it was just a dream. Then realization hits. He's had the same nightmare for days, ever since seeing that black wolf. He remembers the old warning. The wolf is an ancient omen of misfortune. Its very existence was a bad sign, one that spread blood and brought death. He recalls that priests even called it the sign of death, but Johann dismisses the thought. It's just a legend, he tells himself. He didn't hurt the wolf. Then, the memory of meeting the creature in the forest returns. He did throw a rather large rock at it. Shaking off these useless thoughts, he decides to go train. At dusk, Johann is training alone on a hill. A voice calls him a useless brat. He turns. Two men approach, reminding him of his father's warning to keep a low profile. They provoke him, sneering, asking if chopping wood all day really makes him any stronger. The mockery continues. Breaking logs is a cheap trick for someone like him, they say. One mocks his dream of joining the guard, insisting his father would never appoint trash like him. He finishes by saying his father would only use him to crack his skull open and feed him to the pigs. With a single punch, Johann completely obliterates the wooden log in front of him. The two men stare, eyes wide, mouths agape. He turns to the splintered tree stump, then back to the men. He invites them to step closer and repeat what they just said. They refuse and flee, yelling that they'll tell Johann's father everything. He watches them go, muttering that they are pathetic idiots for not worrying about their own futures. Deciding to ignore them, he returns to his training. Another voice confirms that what they said is true. Philip approaches, informing Johann that their father has no intention of appointing him to any position. Johann replies that he suspected as much. Considering he hasn't been killed yet, it could be worse. Philip asks if he's disappointed, but Johann simply says he'll have to find another way to make a living. Then Philip reveals the truth. Their father is afraid of him. Johann stops his punch mid-air. The young man turns to face his brother. Philip explains that Johann's undeniable strength is a threat to their father. Father wants obedient sons like Philip, but Johann insists on living by his own principles. Philip concludes that their father believes Johann's strength will one day take everything from him, just as he once took everything from their grandfather. Johann turns with a smile, calling it all absurd. Philip orders a servant to bring what he requested, and the man obeys promptly, opening a large cloth sack. Johann stares at the contents, asking what it is. Inside the sack are a surcoat, a longsword, and a spare breastplate. Philip declares he is not like their father. He isn't foolish enough to discard someone capable. Johann watches him silently. Philip then promises to appoint Johann captain of the guard once he becomes lord. He asks him to keep training and stop causing trouble. Johann yells back that he never starts the trouble. Philip and the servant depart, leaving the young man alone on the hill. He looks down at the breastplate and realizes it's the exact same armor from his dream. He wonders if wearing it means he'll die the same way he did in the nightmare. Yet, for some reason, he feels he can overcome that destiny, even without proof. Johann decides that regardless, he'll need gear if he wants to win. He dons the breastplate and cloak, adjusting the equipment to his body. A laugh echoes in the distance as the sun sets. In a tavern, a man insists he's telling the truth, but another accuses him of making things up. The first man recounts how Sir Johann killed wolves and drew his sword solely to save Del and Joseph, calling him a true model of a knight. Two men agree that Johann is far nobler than Lord Gason, while a hooded figure listens nearby. Another villager adds that Johann should have just cut off Gason's head that day. Joseph arrives at the bar and announces that drinks are on him. The hooded figure asks why. Joseph raises his mug, proposing a toast to Sir Johann for saving his daughter, Del. One of the men turns to the stranger, asking who he is, as he's never seen him around before. The hooded figure merely points out that they were bad-mouthing the Lord in front of a complete stranger. The villager stares at him. The stranger comments that the locals here don't seem to fear anything. The hooded man then says he found their story quite interesting. He demands they tell him more, scaring the villagers. He specifies that he wants to know more about Johann Eitz. Far away, Johann walks through the village at night. He daydreams about Philip's promise to make him captain of the guard, believing his golden path has finally arrived. Suddenly, Johann stops walking and looks to the side. He spots a drunken man sitting on the ground. Deciding that, as future captain of the guard, he cannot ignore a citizen, Johann approaches. He offers to walk the man home so he doesn't catch a cold. Suddenly, he feels something icy against his neck. A dagger is pressed to his throat. He looks up, trying to understand what is happening. He wonders if Gisen sent the assassin, but dismisses the thought. Then he considers the mistress, or even Philip. He can't guess who sent him. Johann asks his attacker what he wants. Assuming it's about money, he offers everything he has in exchange for his life. But the hooded man claims he already has more than enough money. The figure calls him by name and says he'll ask one question. He warns him, if the answer doesn't please him, his throat will be cut right there. Johann is shocked by the condition, realizing a wrong answer means death. He composes himself, determined to give the perfect answer to survive. The man announces the questioning begins. Johann steels himself. The hooded man comments on Johann's physique and asks if he is truly Gesen's son. Johann is taken aback by the question. Given the life or death stakes, he grinds his teeth, unsure how to answer. Finally, Johann says that sometimes a lion can be born from the lineage of a pig. The hooded figure remains silent. Johann wonders if he gave the wrong answer. The man's hood moves slightly. Suddenly, he explodes into laughter. He states the answer pleased him, but refuses Johann's request to be released. The figure declares that Johann Eitz now belongs to him. Johann can't understand what that means. That man is Kegel, the Empire's greatest assassin and the poison master of the Nasos Guild. He perfected his swordsmanship through countless killings, becoming known as the Poison Serpent. But Kegel had a problem. He couldn't find a successor to inherit his technique. He searched everywhere, but only found people incapable of succeeding him. A few showed potential, but were ultimately defeated. One refused to learn an assassin's skills, preferring death over staining his honor. Kegel granted his wish. Over 30 heirs of knightly families died at his hands. Impatient, he visited the Empire's witch. A voice calls him the Poison Serpent, the one who grants peaceful deaths to all. The witch reveals the disciple he seeks resides in Eitz Castle, one of that lord's sons. Kegel questions if his successor could really be in such a forgotten place. The witch offers his money back if the prophecy fails. He accepts the deal, deciding to trust her. Kegel wanted to believe. He had wasted too many years and was running out of time. Yet doubt accompanied him as he entered the Eitz estate. Looking at the castle, he decided he would kill the boy if he didn't like him. Back in the present, Kegel introduces himself as the Nasos Guild Master and says Johann will become his successor. He gives him a choice: die by his sword or learn his swordsmanship. Those are the only paths. Johann is speechless at the proposal. Then, Johann shouts, asking how much he needs to pay to learn. Kegel replies that he isn't taking money, surprising Johann. He realizes a guildmaster with incredible skill will teach him for free. Johann grabs Kegel, saying he's waited his whole life for someone like him, but Kegel reminds him his swordsmanship is that of an assassin. He warns that just learning the technique will mark him as a disgrace to any knightly family. Johann yells that he doesn't care about honor or shame and begs to be taught. Kegel agrees, noting this kind of brat is a first for him. Johann addresses him as master. He then asks if he'll get an allowance, since Kegel mentioned having lots of money. Kegel stares at him, concluding the brat is truly unbelievable. The scene shifts to Eitz Castle. Gesen Eitz, mounted on his horse, announces the inspection is over and he'll be away for a while. Philip says goodbye and promises to look after the castle. Madame Eitz then declares that no matter how hard he fights, that castle will be hers. Philip calls her foolish and states that he will be the next lord of the castle. Gisen turns away, saying he's sick of both of them and they can do whatever they want. Inside the castle, Philip informs his father that Johann hasn't returned yet and asks what they should do. Philip looks at his father, but Gesen orders him not to waste time on that brat. His death is none of their concern. Philip apologizes to his father. He turns away, wondering where Johann is and what he's doing. Meanwhile, in the forest near the castle, Kegel says he'll verify Johann's skills. Johann asks to borrow a sword, explaining he breaks them frequently. Kegel hands one over. Kegel watches him, finding the boy reckless and disliking everything about him. He draws his own sword, considers killing him right there, and asks if he's ready. Johann answers yes, sword in hand. Master and apprentice face off in the forest. Kegel questions Johann's stance and decides he too must die. Johann asks if he needs to use swordsmanship or if he can fight however he wants. Kegel tells him to do as he prefers. Kegel authorizes him to fight with anything: fists, stones, or blades. Johann grips the sword tightly. He unleashes overwhelming power. Kegel watches him amid fragments shattering in the air. At that moment, he finally understood. All his doubts were completely unfounded. Kegel's eyes widen at the revelation. That boy was monstrously strong. Johann charges with a punch that creates immense air pressure, surprising Kegel. Kegel realizes if that punch lands, his lungs and muscles will be crushed. It's as if he's not fighting a human, but a lion. Later, Kegel's hand rests on his weapon's hilt. The scene shows an intense fight where his master moves unpredictably. Johann questions his movement pattern, unsure if the attack will come from above or below. Then the master's blade hits him squarely in the face. He's knocked to the ground by the impact. His master steps back a few paces, watching him lying there. He comments that he hit him with the flat of the blade, yet Johann didn't faint. He calls him ridiculous. The master claims if he had been born 1,000 years ago, he would have been called a legendary hero. Johann thanks him, but Kegel interrupts to say there's a critical weakness. At this rate, he will die no matter what. Lying down, Johann asks what he means by that. The master explains that Johann can't control his strength, and that will kill him. Johann retorts it's not like he's attacking himself. Kegel prepares for the next move. He challenges him to attack again if he's so confident. He proposes that if Johann can break his sword instead of his own, he'll give him gold. The youth charges, yelling at him to keep his promise. He strikes with all his might. The two blades clash with great impact, but Johann's sword shatters into pieces. The recoil force pushes him backward. Johann realizes the situation is exactly like the fight against his father. His master asks if he understands now, stating he lost to his own strength. He warns him to learn to control his power, or he will die. Johann removes a fragment from his clothes and asks if he threw it there on purpose. Johann affirms he understands now. He will learn to control his strength to survive, for he is the future captain of the Eit's Guard. His master explains that if he knows how to contain his power, something like this is possible. Then Kegel attacks using the sword's sheath to demonstrate. The sheath cuts his armor with ease. Johann is perplexed, realizing his armor was cut by just a sheath. The master asks if he saw, explaining that with control, it's possible to cut anything even without a sword. He says he can't imagine how powerful Johann will become once he learns to control his power. Johann listens attentively. Kegel declares training will begin, warning it will be difficult, and he might even die. He asks if the youth is ready. With a smile, Johann shouts yes. The scene shifts to a village with a castle in the distance. Johann walks through the village streets. After a while, he appears with a bruised face. He reflects that he's finally learning to hold back, but wonders when he'll learn real swordsmanship. Johann turns at a noise, wondering what it is. He spots a group of soldiers and questions if they are elves. Approaching, he asks who they are, but one orders him to leave a restricted area immediately. Johann points at the elf, asking who he is to give orders. The soldier asks who Johann thinks he is. He introduces himself as a member of the Wolves of ActionToon, the Empire's elite mercenaries. The youth gets excited hearing they are mercenaries and asks about the pay. Two respond they receive 2 gold coins for a single job, a value incomparable to a guard captain's salary. One elf comments that skill is what matters, and Johann agrees. Johann thinks he's never seen gold coins and considers changing careers. As he chats, an imposing figure approaches from behind. A warrior in full armor stops before him. Johann feels an overwhelming presence and instinctively moves his hand to his sword. He prepares to draw his weapon, then he stops, sweating, wondering why he tried to unsheath his sword. An elf points his sword at Johann, accusing him of disrespect for trying to draw his weapon before Sir Karamov. With a gesture, the warrior interrupts him, saying it's fine. Mounted on his horse, he asks who Johann is. Johann remains silent for a moment. Surrounded by the other soldiers' swords, he introduces himself as Johann of House Eitz. The warrior reaches for his helmet. He removes it, revealing himself to be Karamov, an Imperial Guard Knight of the Holy Empire. Johann realizes he instinctively placed his hand on his sword. He's never felt like this before, not even facing the Black Wolf or when his father tried to kill him. His killing intent is suffocating. It's like being prey placed before a relentless predator. Karamov merely orders him to move out of the way. He remains paralyzed under the pressure. Finally, he manages to move aside. The elves comment on how scared Johann looks. As they depart, one warns him to be careful next time, if there is a next time. A knight in training, Jane, asks Sir Karamov if it's okay to just leave him there. Karamov replies that he doesn't want to cause trouble on a day like this. He adds, "Not yet," as Johann watches the group enter the gate. Alone, he wonders why an emperor's knight would be there. A man runs, hearing Sir Karamov has arrived. Philip Eitz rushes through the halls. Why would such an important figure come here? Out of breath, he introduces himself as the next Lord Eitz and asks why he visited. Madame Eitz interrupts. She praises Karamov and introduces her son, John, as the true future lord. She continues, saying if she'd known of his existence, she would have married later. She invites him into the castle. Karamov ignores her and keeps walking. The madame calls after him unanswered. He sets his helm aside. Sitting on a throne, Karamov asks where Gessen is. The Eitz family watches from below. Philip scolds him. It's improper to address Lord Gessen that way, but Madame Eitz argues. As the Empire's greatest knight, he can do as he pleases. She will handle the reception. Philip clenches his fists. She's trying to use this chance to promote her son as the next lord. Karamov grabs his sword hilt and shouts for silence. He orders everyone out and demands alcohol. Holding his weapon, he declares he'll wait inside the castle for Gason's arrival. During the night, Johann trains with his master, blocking blows. He gets distracted, remembering Karamov's arrival. Kegel scolds him and throws daggers, telling him to focus. The youth dodges the attacks with his sword, but one blade grazes his neck. His master warns him. He'd be dead if the daggers were poisoned. Why isn't he concentrating? Johann explains. The Emperor's knights arrived at the village. Something feels wrong. He continues. This is Eit's family territory. They shouldn't be allowed to close the gates and control entry like that. Kegel asks what he can do about it, suspicious or not. He describes Karamov, the Emperor's direct knight, the strongest warrior on the continent, wearing legendary armor. Johann asks if Karamov is stronger than him. The master is silent for a moment. Then he speaks. If he had to face Karamov, he would flee without hesitation. Kegel interrupts himself and tells him to be quiet. Kegel yells that he's an idiot. He should know his place. He can't even control his own strength. Johann just closes his eyes for a moment. Then he stands, sword in hand, and states he will do it. His master sighs and calls him to combat. The two charge each other at high speed. Johann is hit by the scabbard but yells to continue. He is struck again and insists they try again. Even hit repeatedly, he doesn't give up. Kegel also shouts for him to advance again. The youth wonders why it isn't working. He can't understand why he can't cut a simple scabbard. Then he remembers the teaching about the flow of force. He shouldn't just swing the sword, but concentrate power at its tip. While swinging the weapon, Johann slowly began to understand what controlling his strength meant. Kegel notices the dull sound of his sword becoming sharper. Johann crosses his sword with his master's scabbard in a powerful strike. He realizes something. If he combines everything he's learned so far, with the right amount of force, he can do it. Kegel senses the next attack will be dangerous. Then he attacks with a precise, swift movement. His blade cuts the air, and he manages to cut the tip of Kegel's scabbard. Johann celebrates the feat excitedly. He shouts that he did it, and now understands the feeling, saying it wasn't that hard. Kegel just watches, thinking it must have been luck. The master then calls him by name, and he responds promptly. Kegel draws his sword. He warns that this time, he won't hold back. Johann advances again with full force. The impact of the blow throws Kegel backward. Johann jumps for joy, celebrating another victory. Kegel wonders what kind of boy he is. He is amazed. Johann can use the secret sword technique, Serpent's Tongue, even though he was only taught to control force. Johann absorbed the technique perfectly after seeing it only briefly on the first day they met, and now he is using it more perfectly than the master himself. Kegel remains silent for a moment. The old assassin's experience tells him something. Unless a miracle happens, Johann has already become someone he cannot defeat. Kegel, master of the Empire's strongest assassin guild, Nasos Poison, murmurs softly. He calls Johann an absurd boy, while the youth celebrates learning the technique. That night, Kegel announces his teachings are over. He will leave at dawn. Johann questions the decision, but his master states he already has everything necessary. He admits it. In less than a week, Johann became stronger than him. Kegel says he is satisfied his swordsmanship won't disappear and advises him to live as he wishes. He says Johann Eitz has worked hard until now. Sitting around a campfire, Johann asks the reason for leaving. He responds it's just his way. Then Johann questions him about the Black Wolf. Kegel confirms it is a sinister sign. Johann says he found the Black Wolf recently. He dreamed his head was cut off, so he thought his master was the omen. Kegel responds that if he had killed him, that would have been the sign. Misfortune has no fixed form. He then says he will give him advice before leaving. The first advice is to find a weapon suitable for his strength. It would need to be Dana's steel to withstand his power. Dana's steel is a legendary metal imbued with magic. Its creation method was lost. It can only be mined from ancient ruins, making weapons made from it extremely rare. Johann asks why recommend it if he can't afford it. Kegel replies it was just so he'd know what to look for. Kegel warns him, if he ever sees someone using a Dana's steel weapon, even from afar, he must run without looking back. He warns him that if he doesn't know his limits, he won't live long. Johann agrees to remember that. The master stands to leave. Johann asks if he's going already. Kegel advises him not to fight opponents he cannot beat, and to use every means necessary to kill if needed. He states that if Johann follows this rule, he probably won't die, and as final advice, asks him not to die. Johann watches his master move away through the dark forest, remembering his words about fleeing or killing, and finally, that he must always survive. Johann promises he will remember those words. Meanwhile, at the Eitz castle, Madame Eitz asks Karamov if the alcohol pleases him. He responds the drink tastes like rotten urine and orders her to take it away. She then breaks the bottle with her fan. She comments it was an expensive drink he didn't like. Madame Eitz states the only better drink is in Lord Gezen's room. She suggests he move to a more comfortable room as he must be tired from the trip. She continues, saying Lord Gezen's room is very comfortable. He won't be disappointed. Then she suggests the two could have fun together. Karamov simply orders her to disappear. Madame Eitz insists. Lord Gezen will arrive late, and they don't have much time. Karamov's expression changes. He declares he was getting sick of that. He will have fun. A scream echoes through the room. Karamov holds the madam by the neck, talking about the entertainment known as massacre. Philip peeks through a crack in the door and is terrified by the scene. Returning, Johann stops at the top of a hill. He looks forward and wonders what that is. The village and castle are in flames. He questions why everything is burning. Gazen Eitz rides with his men and questions why smoke rises from his property. One of his men warns the fire seems large. He should return immediately. Then the horse bolts at high speed. He arrives at the gates of his property. The guards mock him for being slow and hurry him inside. They warn him that Sir Karamov isn't a very patient person. Gessen faces the scene before him. The courtyard is littered with the bodies of his men and servants. Their lifeless faces are scattered across the ground. He then looks up at the figure ahead. A person in armor steps forward. Sir Karamov greets him, saying he is late. Gessen questions what he is doing as his hand goes to his axe handle. He draws his weapon and demands to know what Karamov thinks he's doing. Karamov accuses him of high treason and attempted assassination of the emperor. He announces that House Eitz will be eradicated by decree. Gessen Eitz shouts that this is a purge. They are only falsely accusing him to execute him. He then advances against Karamov, declaring he won't let him do whatever he wants. Sir Karamov simply orders the trumpet sounded and gives the order to recover the Eitz family seal and purge everyone in the territory. A soldier raises the trumpet to his mouth as the final order is given to wipe that land off the map. The Imperial army advances shouting. Amidst the burning village, a soldier approaches an injured villager. The man kneeling on the ground calls him a cruel bastard. Then the soldier asks if it's so hard to say where the pig's son is hiding. He decides to send him to his god. But the moment he attacks, Johann Eitz appears to block the blow. The young man cuts the soldier with his sword. The villager watches blood spray. He looks up and recognizes his savior as Lord Johann. Johann helps him up and asks what is happening. The man replies that Imperial troops are killing every villager they see. Father Valberg then adds that it's possible Lord Gessen has already been killed too. Johann Eitz receives the news about his father. Father Valberg adds they are burning the whole village to exterminate everything. The youth realizes he must return to the castle. Then he hears a familiar voice nearby. He turns and walks toward the sound while Valberg calls him. Johann finds little Dell on the floor and asks if it's her. He tells the child she is safe now and calls her close. Suddenly he perceives imminent danger. Dell points behind him, stuttering that her father was hit. Johann turns to look. The father who once protected and smiled at his daughter is now fallen on the ground, lifeless. Johann sees the bodies of more villagers around him. The family that once greeted him cheerfully is now dead on the ground. The men he drank and laughed with were also killed. He grits his teeth. Dell clings to his cape. Johann tells Dell it's dangerous to be alone and to stay with Father Valberg. The girl agrees. Then he turns and walks toward the flames while Valberg asks where he's going. Valberg, holding Dell, yells that he mustn't go and needs to flee. Johann stops walking upon hearing his name called. He looks up at an imperial standard with a head impaled on top. It is the head of his father, Gazen Eitz. A wooden sign announces Duke Gazen Eitz was executed for treason against the emperor. It warns that anyone who takes his body will be punished for the same crime. Signed by Karamov. A nearby soldier recognizes him. He asks if he isn't the bastard's son. The man mocks, thinking he had fled. He asks if he came back to die. Johann draws his sword in a quick movement. He cuts the standard pole, which falls to the ground and is trampled. The soldier yells at the others not to stand there and to kill him now. Johann stares at them. Then he advances and cuts down the soldiers. The last soldier falls to the ground. Johann stands alone amidst the destruction of his village. He wonders why he is doing this and why he is returning to the castle. He remembers Father Valberg's warning to flee, agreeing he should be running. Returning to the castle to face Karamov would just mean dying for no reason. Suddenly, he hears someone call his name. He finds Philip Eitz wounded among the bodies of other knights. Philip recognizes him and says he is alive. Philip asks why he came back. He warns him to leave, for he will die if he stays. Philip then removes his helm, saying he wanted to give it to him when Johann became lord. Johann holds the helm in his hands. He grits his teeth. A memory of his master instructing him to understand the difference in skill level comes to mind. He also advised him to run if it got dangerous. Even with the warning that the opponent was an emperor's knight, Johann decides. He remembers his master's words, "If you must fight, you must kill." Johann puts on the helm, stating the time is now. He then stands up. The youth enters the castle gates. He faces a group of imperial soldiers. The soldiers wonder how he got in and where the guards are. Johann clenches his fist and calls for Karamov. He advances against the men, yelling for the bastard to come out. The youth steps firmly on the stone floor. He stands still in his full armor. Blood drips from his sword. Sir Karamov finally appears, commenting that Eitz's fugitive son survived. He recognizes him as Johann Eitz, the man who was in front of the castle earlier. Johann states he's not in the mood to swap names. Johann just tells Karamov to think of him as a very angry man. Karamov tells Johann he should have kept running to live, guessing he doesn't care about his own life. Karamov then accepts the imminent confrontation. With his sword in hand, he challenges Johann to attack if he wants to die. Johann replies that wasn't necessary to say. It was exactly what he intended to do anyway. Johann advances. His sword clashes against Karamov's amidst the flames. Their blades press against each other. Johann tries a sideways strike, but Karamov blocks the attack with his strength. The swords slide against one another. Karamov then disarms him with a powerful blow. Johann's sword flies away and he leaps back to dodge. He lands and prepares again. Karamov says this is fun. Johann's swords break repeatedly into multiple pieces. The blades float in the air around him. Johann observes the weapon fragments. Karamov advances and attacks with his sword. The blow descends in a wide arc. A stone pillar is cut in half. Karamov finds the situation interesting. He comments that Johann is much stronger than Brits ever was. Then Karamov spots one of his soldiers. He rips the man's head off and throws it, declaring that this is truly fun. He demands that Eitz's bastard son entertain him more. Johann recovers and blocks the next attack. His block cracks Karamov's armor. He seizes the opportunity to counterattack. His blade cuts Karamov's arm. Karamov retreats a few steps. The two face each other at a distance. Karamov looks at his arm, questioning how Johann managed to cut his Danis steel armor. Karamov observes the damage on his gauntlet. Johann tightens his grip on his sword hilt. Karamov considers it impossible for a human to damage Danis steel and questions his identity. Then the youth lifts his sword again for attack. The blades clash hard. Karamov is surprised by his strength, but Johann continues his attack with a downward strike. Karamov blocks the attack with his sword. He presses with another powerful blow. Karamov judges him a brute with strength who only swings the sword without technique. He prepares for a counterattack. He deflects Johann's blow to the side. Then Karamov advances with a thrust. Johann dodges sharply, confirming he can't defend against the simple attack. Karamov realizes Johann fights only on instinct, with no technique, and wonders if Gazin never taught him to fight. He considers him a dangerous opponent and decides he needs to end the fight quickly. Karamov prepares for Johann's next wide blow. Karamov parries Johann's blow, but the blade digs deep against his own. With both hands, Johann pushes the sword forward, but Karamov manages to deflect the blow. The youth challenges him to attack, stating Karamov's head will roll. Karamov then perceives something unexpected in Johann's movement. Johann manages to hold Karamov's blade with his own hands. A serpent shape emerges from his arm. He then hits Karamov's face with a direct punch. The blow throws him back with force. The impact of the punch destroys part of his armor. Karamov spits blood. His sword falls and hits the stone floor. He retreats, holding his mouth. Then he recognizes the technique as Kegal's assassination swordsmanship. He realizes Johann Eitz was hiding his true ability. His eyes widen. He curses himself for lowering his guard. His body bends forward while more blood comes from his mouth. A puddle forms on the floor. He straightens up and faces Johann. The youth watches him closely. Johann removes his helm and then asks why he did all that. Karamov responds everything was for his imperial majesty. He explains the empire is unstable, so His Majesty drew the imperial sword to correct it. The sword, known as Mavkara, is mentioned by him. Karamov leans on his sword, coughing, while Johann stands before him. Then Karamov begins to laugh and declares he is moved by Johann Eitz. He says that for decades he fought countless knights but never found anyone so strong. Karamov invites him to go with him to the Empire. He states His Majesty needs strong talent like him now. He promises the Empire's infinite gold, glory, and vast fertile lands. The Emperor himself will name him an Imperial Knight. He encourages him to become the Emperor's sword. Johann remains silent before the offer of infinite gold. He turns his face away. He looks up and says that was the life he dreamed of one day, but now he feels nothing. Then, he simply refuses. Karamov questions what he said. Johann confronts him for killing his family, and also innocent servants who did nothing wrong. Karamov repeats the word servants, then questions if he is rejecting his offer because of servants. He grinds his teeth. Then Karamov yells, asking who cares about their deaths, and calls them insects. Karamov declares the strong drink the blood of the weak, and that is the law of the world. Johann remains silent before his words. He clenches his fist and apologizes to his master, saying he cannot control his strength. The youth then advances and hits his face with a punch. The impact of the blow strikes Karamov's head. Johann keeps his fist clenched. He attacks again, yelling about it being for the Emperor. The second punch hits the side of Karamov's head. He continues the attack, yelling about worthless lives. Karamov's eye reflects the approaching blow. Johann yells, asking what makes him think he is so grand. He then demands to know who gave him the right to judge who lives and who dies. Johann lands a final punch on Karamov's face. His eye widens with the impact of the blow. Blood spurts from his face. His hand twitches on the floor. Johann lowers his bloody fist. He stands over Karamov's fallen body. Then he turns to walk away. Karamov calls him a fool. He says he should have accepted his offer. And now it is too late for the one who broke the Emperor's sword. Now will know only suffering from now on. Johann stares at him as Karamov's finger falls lifeless. His body then dissolves. Johann reflects that to survive in a world that accepts death, all he thought about was money. But now, He clenches his fist. Everyone in the territory was massacred, and his family and neighbors were killed and burned. Even if the whole world becomes his enemy, he walks among the bodies, for he only did what needed to be done. He will never regret what he did, no matter what they say, for this is now the way he lives. Fortress gates groan open under the night sky. A guard clears the path. Jane and her retinue of elves enter the courtyard. She turns to a wounded soldier, asking one final time if his report is true. The soldier swears there is no lie in his words, begging her to believe him. He recounts how the man breached the area and battered every soldier. Then, with his bare hands, took Sir Karamov's head. The soldier concludes that was the last time they saw Sir Karamov. Jane looks at the bodies on the ground and asks why her corpse isn't there. She demands to know how she can believe such a story without proof. The man replies that he doesn't understand that part either, but he saw it happen. Another elf approaches, informing Master Jane the pursuit group is ready. She confirms she'll be there soon. Jane stalks across the courtyard. She stands before her troops, then gives the order to hunt him down and kill him. Jane announces the target is Johann Eitz. Johann runs through the forest as the sun sets. She accuses him of being a traitor to his bloodline and suspect in Sir Karamov's murder. The young man keeps fleeing through the woods, carrying Philip on his shoulders. Jane shouts for her men to hunt him, kill him if necessary, but bring him back. Soldiers surround him in the dark forest. An elf falls to his sword. Johann cuts a path through the troops. The commander warns that he can rip through Danis' steel. Never face him alone. Treat this like a dragon hunt. She orders all territorial roads closed, to pursue him relentlessly until he breaks. Her soldiers react to news of Sir Karamov's death. Jane holds her gaze steady. She declares they must bring that bastard's head to Her Majesty. A memory of a wounded Philip surfaces, telling him to listen closely. He instructs him to go to his stable, take a warhorse, and flee, insisting he must survive at all costs. Still carrying Philip, Johann reaches the stable, exhausted, thinking it was the end. He looks over his shoulder, gasping. Hiding Karamov's body didn't cause the expected chaos. The pursuit group moved faster than he anticipated. He decides to keep carrying Philip, using the armor as a shield until he loses them completely. He struggles to stand and prepares to move on. He opens the stable door. Inside, he recognizes Gazen's warhorse. Johann thanks his brother. He strokes the horse, saying that with its help, he might get some rest. He decides to name the animal. The horse stares at him. He names it Philip. An elf soldier shouts that he saw the glint of Danis steel and orders a search of the area. He asserts the bastard is definitely close. A guard claims to have heard hoofbeats. Johann bursts through the forest on horseback, surprising the soldiers. He clings to the body in his arms as he charges. A soldier identifies him as Johann Eitz and yells that he's escaping on horseback. He rides rapidly into the forest's darkness. The elf commander orders his men to bring him down. Do not let him escape. Soldiers fire crossbows at him. Arrows strike the armor of the body Johann uses as a shield. He disappears among the moonlit trees. Johann rode through the night, quickly losing the pursuit group. He reached the depths of the Black Forest. He stops, saying that even though Philip was a twisted man, leaving him unburied feels wrong. Johann looks back. He notes Philip's armor, commenting that it looks expensive. He takes the sword from the body. Johann examines it, realizing the blade is light, solid, and made of Danis steel. He unsheathes it and inspects the inscriptions. He recognizes ancient imperial script reading, "I am the one who reclaims crests." He repeats the name, Crest Reclaimer. He wonders if it refers to reclaiming family crests, finding the name ominous. He decides to take the sword and bury the armor. It's a waste, but he promises to return for it later. Carrying it won't help now. He begins digging a grave. He drives the shovel into the ground. After burying the body and gear, he questions if it's enough. The image of Karamov, the Emperor's knight, comes to mind. He knows once the news spreads, the entire empire will hunt him, along with Karamov's knights seeking revenge. Her threat that he would only know suffering echoes in his thoughts. He reflects that his life was suffering long before he killed her. With House Eitz burned and penniless, he wonders what to do now and decides to rest. Suddenly, he hears a growl from the darkness and turns. A giant black wolf appears before Johann Eitz. He faces the creature. The young man stands, exhausted, lamenting the animal's arrival when he's completely drained. He knows he has no chance in this condition. He can barely hold his sword. His only hope is to reach the horse and escape. But a voice nearby shouts that they found his horse. Soldiers capture the warhorse, claiming he must be close. Johann recognizes the wolves of Akitan and realizes they've caught up. An elf points toward him, saying he heard something from that direction. The pursuit group aims crossbows into the darkness. He is cornered, a monster in front, the pursuers behind. With nowhere to run, he wonders if this is the end. Then, the wolf leaps over him. It attacks the elven soldiers from behind. The black wolf slaughters the elves. A soldier screams for help as the creature mauls him. Johann watches, wondering why the monster missed him. He realizes the animal is clearing a path. This is his chance. Knowing he'll die if he doesn't move, he prepares to run. He grits his teeth and charges. The young man runs to his horse. He mounts the saddle, he snaps the reins and takes off at high speed. He gallops away. Images of childhood flash through his mind. The priest teaching him to write. Time spent with his brother. Johann keeps riding. He remembers his youth and training. He remembers slaughtered villagers as he rides away from his homeland. The memory of his brother handing him the helm before dying surfaces. He leaves behind the ruins of his home, Eitz village. The lifeless body of an elven soldier lies on the ground. The black wolf stands guard over the soldiers it killed. The creature watches Johann disappear onto the horizon. Soldiers patrol a dirt road. Columns of smoke rise in the distance. Hidden in the brush, Johann realizes his escape route is gone. It's completely blocked by a checkpoint. He slumps against his horse, utterly exhausted. He hasn't eaten or slept properly since making his escape. For 3 straight days, the young man has been hunted mercilessly by the soldiers of ActionToon. Johann has lost count of how many times he's nearly died defending against group attacks. He's reached his limit. He barely has the strength to lift his own sword. In the distance, more guards block the only exit. He has nowhere left to go. Crouched low, he keeps watching the soldiers moving along the path. Suddenly, a merchant caravan with an armed escort appears on the road. An idea strikes him. Johann decides he will disguise himself as a merchant. He'll use the group to get through the checkpoint without raising suspicion. At the caravan, a man addresses Sir Eldons of the Katana Trading Company. Eldons asks what it is. The mercenary beside him points nervously down the road. A heavily armed rider appears before them. Khan, the mercenary leader, suggests they prepare for a fight. The mercenary Gamson questions why they are so worried about a single knight. Goran tells him to look closely. The man wears full plate armor and rides a war horse. Furthermore, he's wearing a plate helm and a metal breastplate. Khan grabs Gamson's head, ordering him to look at the sword at the knight's waist. The weapon's hilt reveals it was forged from Danish steel. It could cut through their armor easily. The young mercenary still doubts they could lose, since there are 9 of them. One of the men shoves him aside, annoyed that he can't think straight with him around. Another mercenary smacks him on the head, telling him to shut his mouth if he doesn't know anything. Eldons orders Goran and Khan to ready everyone to attack at the slightest suspicious movement. He announces he'll check the situation first. They should all attack on his signal. Both mercenaries confirm the order. Then Eldon steps down from the wagon and approaches the knight. As he walks, Khan instructs his men to knock the target off his horse the moment the fight starts. The merchant introduces himself as Eldons of the Katana Company. He asks for the knight's name to avoid misunderstandings. Johann, disguised under his helm, is surprised to see that he is a catman. Eldons observes his mercenaries ready for combat. Johann senses the distrust. He decides he needs to make the catman lower his guard, so he introduces himself as Johann and explains that his appearance is due to a bandit attack. He asks Eldons to tell his men not to attack him. The merchant apologizes. He justifies it by saying that as a seller, he must always be prepared for the worst. Johann says he understands the situation. He then asks if he can travel with the group, as he lost all his money in the attack. In exchange for a little food and a place to sleep, he offers to help protect the caravan. Eldons evaluates the proposal and finally agrees to the deal. He informs him they are on their way to Marseille and suggests Johann get acquainted with the mercenaries. The young man thanks him, though he doesn't know where the destination lies. Walking away, Eldons explains to his men that Johann is just a wanderer, but they should keep an eye on him, and if anything happens, he orders them not to hesitate to kill him. The mercenaries confirm the order. Now, Johann only needs to worry about getting past the checkpoint. The caravan then resumes its journey along the road. One of the soldiers at the checkpoint alerts the others that people are approaching. The wolves of ActionToon then order the caravan to stop for a brief inspection. Johann finally reaches his obstacle, hoping to pass unnoticed. Eldon steps forward and introduces himself, asking to speak directly with the person in charge. The guard recognizes the Katana Trading Company, which has its main headquarters in Marseille. He greets the merchant and explains that they are just following orders to search for a fugitive trader. Johann understands that the checkpoint was set up specifically to capture him. One of the soldiers approaches him and demands he remove his helm to show his face. He invents an excuse, saying he has a skin condition. The guards mock him and insist that he show his face anyway. The group leader questions if the knight is hiding something. The two then stare at each other in a moment of tension. Johann prepares for the worst and places his hand on the hilt of his sword. However, the discussion is interrupted by a voice. Eldons shouts at the soldiers, asking if they dare suspect his company and demanding to see the commander. He then threatens the guard, saying that if there is further interference, he will make a direct complaint to the captain. He specifies that the complaint will be filed personally at the Marseille branch. The guard then yields and orders his men to clear the path for them. The other soldiers show frustration with their superior's decision. The group leader approaches Johann and says he got lucky. The caravan finally passes the checkpoint and continues on its way. The young knight looks back one last time. The soldiers just watch the group move away down the road. By dusk, the mercenaries are gathered around the campfire to organize watch shifts. In his tent, Eldons checks a scroll. He then approaches Johann and dismisses him to go to sleep, since he has no tasks. The young man thanks one of the mercenaries. A sleeping bag is thrown on the ground for him. Johann sits down, finally ready to rest. He then falls into a deep sleep beside the campfire. A man watches the full moon through the trees. Another emerges from the darkness of the vegetation. He then orders everyone to get ready. The plan is to surround them by the hill and attack everyone at once. In a dream, Sergeant Kim Johann recalls his days in the military. During a tactical training exercise, he successfully executed a defense-in-depth strategy against a superior enemy force. His remarkable tactical prowess became a shining example for his fellow soldiers. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Kim Yibok awarded him a medal and a 5-day leave. The young sergeant salutes his superior. He celebrates inwardly, thinking military life truly suits him. But the outdated culture and grueling shifts soon changed his mind. Worst of all was the abysmal pay. That was what made him decide to run away. In his nightmare, he's being dragged back to base. Johann jolts awake. He sits up. Realizing it was just a dream, he takes a deep breath, still shaking off the fright. The army dream ruined his sleep, and now his whole body aches. He glances to the side. The moon still illuminates the camp. Suddenly, a rain of arrows begins to fall. Johann braces for impact. With a lightning-fast movement, he catches an arrow just inches from his face. He realizes the soldiers have found him again. Annoyed at being discovered, he stands up, deciding he needs to warn the mercenaries first. He shouts, alerting everyone to the enemy ambush. Eldons and the others are jolted awake by the sudden warning. The scene flashes back to 5 minutes before the attack. Kan was complaining to Gamson, asking why they were the only ones busting their backs while the new knight did nothing. He tells the young mercenary to shut his mouth. The leader explains they can't trust guard duty to a stranger who might kill them in their sleep and steal their supplies. He warns him that if he keeps being so reckless, he won't last long in this line of work. Kan turns to continue his patrol. Gamson reveals he became a mercenary to live like a real man, but he gripes that if he'd known the Goran mercenaries were a bunch of cowards, he never would have joined up. Kan turns back to Gamson and asks what he just said. The two mercenaries stare each other down in the dark forest. Suddenly, the shout of "Ambush!" interrupts them. Arrows begin raining down rapidly. Kan shoves Gamson to the ground, shielding him with his own body. When the arrow barrage finally stops, he lifts his head. He orders Gamson to go get the others immediately, but the young mercenary bolts in the opposite direction. Kan watches him flee until someone calls his name. Goran runs over, relieved to find him alive, and warns him about the attack. The mercenary asks about Gamson, but quickly shifts focus to Eldon's safety. He reports the merchant is hiding under the wagon, and they need to prepare for a fight. Johann approaches and orders them to form a defensive perimeter around the wagon. He explains they need to fight together, as they don't know where the attack will come from. Goran questions him, asking if he thinks he's their employer. Kan tells Johann they'll look after themselves. The young man should just worry about his own survival. The knight is surprised by the response. Goran then rallies the mercenaries, ordering everyone to grab their shields and prepare for battle. Johann approaches Kan, stating he's been in similar fights before and asking for a shield to help. Suddenly, Eldons denies the request, saying there aren't enough shields and he'll have to fend for himself. He turns away, realizing the mercenaries don't trust him. His eyes widen as the enemy approaches. A massive band of bandits emerges from the forest darkness. Johann notices these aren't the wolves of Aquitaine, just common thieves. Kan shouts for all units to advance. The mercenaries charge into the forest to engage the enemy. Left behind, Johann wonders who's going to protect the wagon. The mercenaries and bandits clash intensely. The thief leader urges his men to use their numerical advantage. Goran defends himself, shouting for his comrades to hold their position. Retreat means death. A bandit lands a solid punch on Goran's face. Kan screams his captain's name. The bandit raises his dagger over Goran, ready to finish him off. Johann clenches his fist, deciding to intervene. With a swift motion, he draws his sword. A thief turns, surprised by the sudden action. Another nearby bandit is also confused by what's happening. From the ground, Goran watches the scene unfold. In a flash, Johann slices one of the enemies in half. The bandit's blood runs down the blade of his sword. Johann notices the runes on the weapon are absorbing the blood. One of the bandits shouts that the enemy has a demon sword and can't be defeated. Johann introduces himself as Johann of House Yates, and demands to know who they are to attack him. Kan and Goran are stunned to discover he's a noble. He only slightly altered his real name from Eitz to Yates. The bandits whisper amongst themselves, realizing they're in deep trouble for attacking a noble from a prominent house. Johann demands they answer his question. He points his sword at the leader, asking if they will surrender now, or if they'd prefer to meet their end by his blade. The noble warns them to consider their decision carefully. The bandit leader just breathes heavily, offering no response. Then, one of the thieves throws his sword to the ground. Soon the others follow suit with their weapons. Hands raised, the leader finally announces their surrender. Johann sheathes his sword. He turns to Goran, ordering him to tie up the prisoners and authorizing him to kill anyone who resists. Goran approaches Sir Eldons, asking what they should do now. He worries the noble might hold a grudge for his earlier mistreatment, since they thought he was just a well-equipped drifter. But Eldons reassures him, saying he'll handle the situation. The fact they let him join in the first place counts as goodwill. The merchant approaches Johann, commenting on his difficult night. He thanks him for protecting the caravan, saying he doesn't know how he can ever repay the favor. Johann places a hand on his shoulder, stating the most important thing is everyone's safety. The Catman is surprised he isn't demanding compensation. With that, the young noble steps away, but he turns back and requests that next time, they lend him a shield. Eldons agrees immediately, promising he'll be the first to get one. Johann then mentions his plan to interrogate the prisoners and asks for the mercenaries' assistance. Goran suggests that now his status is known. Speaking to the prisoners more formally would put everyone at ease. A mercenary shoves one of the captured thieves forward. He is quickly forced to kneel before Johann. The noble approaches, asking who he is and why he attacked them. The leader reveals they are private soldiers of the annihilated House Brits. Months ago, House Brits was suddenly attacked on charges of treason against the Emperor. The ones responsible for massacring their territory were the wolves of a kitten. They resisted desperately, but were defeated and forced to retreat when the noble executioner joined the fray. A mercenary beside Johann confirms it was likely him, Karamov, the Emperor's hunting dog. The bandit leader bows, apologizing for committing a capital offense. He explains the Imperial army hunted them as rebels, and the Northerners turned their backs on them, branding them deserters. While he can't justify banditry, they had to do something to survive. Johann asks if there was any other motive for the attack. The man denies it, stating their only reason for attacking was the caravan's obvious wealth. Eldons becomes furious, shouting that trading company deliveries are built on trust. Johann asks a mercenary to restrain him, ordering Sir Eldons to calm down. He reflects on the treason against the Emperor, remembering Karamov saying it was all for him. Finally, he understands the situation. Johann concludes there never was any treason. It was merely a pretext for the Emperor to purge the nobles using Karamov. Johann curses the Emperor, wishing him the most horrible death imaginable. He realizes the bandits are in a similar situation to his own, also victims of those in power. Yet they became bandits, and the young noble isn't sure how to handle them. Khan approaches asking for orders, offering to beat more information out of them. Johann refuses, saying they already know everything they need to. Suddenly, Gamson returns, charging in to beat one of the prisoners to death. The tied-up prisoner manages to block the young mercenary's attack. Khan steps in, grabbing Gamson's weapon before he can strike again. Gamson turns, demanding to know why he's being stopped. The mercenary leader states they have no right to punish the prisoners, especially him, after he abandoned his comrades and ran away. The young mercenary just indifferently accepts the situation. The bandit leader begs Sir Johann to spare their lives, promising to never do wrong again. The other prisoners cower on the ground in fear. Khan offers to execute them all immediately given the order. Johann grips the hilt of his sword, pondering his options. He decides the mercenaries should disarm them and let them go. The bandit leader gives thanks, but Gamson questions why he's sparing their lives. The young noble turns to the prisoners, telling them to listen closely. He says he understands their circumstances, but robbing caravans is unacceptable. Johann reveals that, like them, he only learned skills in order to survive. Eldons is surprised to hear a noble talk about learning survival skills. A mercenary points to Goran, stating he's only there because the pay is good. The noble shouts for them to learn new skills and find an honest way to make a living. The bandit leader bows in gratitude, promising they will never forget his mercy. Johann tells the group they need to move out too. He doesn't want to get caught up in more trouble. In the distance, a shadowy creature watches them from a hilltop. The figure rises in the darkness, revealing itself to be a wolf with glowing red eyes. The group decides to rest in a small place called Rootspur before continuing to Marcel. The village chief is informed that Sir Eldons of the Katana Trading Company has arrived. He goes to meet the merchant in the village courtyard. Eldons greets him enthusiastically, saying it's been months. The chief welcomes him back and asks if anything happened on the road. The merchant recounts encountering a band of bandits, remarking that things have gotten worse since the Emperor went mad. He is immediately reprimanded, saying that could cause trouble if an Imperial loyalist heard. But Eldons explains everything worked out thanks to an incredibly brave noble traveling with them. The chief mentions a fake noble came through weeks ago, but he beat the man and threw him out of the village. The Catman just laughs, noting his friend still acts recklessly when he loses his temper. Eldons assures him this one is different. This noble is brave, honest, and protected them from the bandits. He even refused any reward, shocking the village chief. The chief realizes having that knight around would be a huge help against bandits. In these times, a good knight is vital for public safety. With that in mind, he invites the group to stay for a few weeks and rest. Eldons refuses, but the chief insists their relationship allows for such favors. Eldons jokes that the chief is trying to steal his companion, and the chief laughs. The chief then asks where the noble is. Currently, he sits alone in a corner. He is starving, looking like a beggar about to die in the street. Garan approaches and calls for Sir Johan, who asks what he wants. The mercenary offers him a cloth bag full of coins confiscated from the bandits. He explains they sold all the bandits' goods and weapons for a decent sum. The young noble asks if he took any for himself, but the mercenary denies it, saying Johan was the one who captured them. Johan stares at the money in his helmet for a moment. Then he hands a larger bag to Goran, ordering him to split it among his men. The mercenary refuses, saying it's too much and the spoils should be his, but Johan insists. He shows that he already took his share, holding just a few coins in his hand. The noble reassures him it's fine. He knows spending a little money to keep the mercenary band loyal is better than facing the wolves of a chitin alone. Besides, he didn't fight alone. Johan declares that having fought together makes them comrades in arms, hoping the gesture creates a bond of trust. He bids the mercenary farewell and walks away. Goran watches him go, recognizing the true dignity of a knight who cares for his subordinates. The mercenary turns to gather his men. He announces that Sir Johan has shown them great generosity. Goran explains the noble distributed the profits from the war spoils and orders everyone to form a line. The other mercenaries are stunned, questioning if he's really giving away money that should be his. They exchange disbelieving looks. The surprise quickly turns into celebration as the group begins cheering Johan's name throughout the village. Later, in an inn, the young noble sleeps deeply, his sword beside him. His room door begins to slowly creak open. The candle flame beside the bed is suddenly snuffed out. Johan continues to sleep, oblivious to the presence in the room. A pair of red eyes watches him from the darkness. A masked figure leans over him, holding a dagger. The night before the attack, a man announces that Sir Johan has been generous and will distribute the spoils of war so everyone gets their share. With the news, the crowd of men erupts in celebration. Through the city streets, Johan walks as people all around shout his name. Even though he kept the most expensive items for himself, he still won the loyalty of his men. An older man approaches and asks if he is Sir Johan. Surprised, Johan asks if the stranger knows him, and receives the answer that he does, as he is the nobleman who came with Mr. Eldons. The man then offers to take him to the best available room, explaining that the Katana Trading Company has already paid for all expenses. That payment was Eldons' way of settling his debt with him. Without objection, Johan agrees and asks the man to lead the way. Later, among the soldiers, one of them asks why only one man didn't get paid. The other explains that Gamson hid while everyone else fought, and for that, he will receive nothing. Hearing this, Gamson turns to the side. Suddenly, something in the distance catches his eye. Through the window, he sees Johan being led by the older man. The sight of the nobleman outside sparks an idea in his mind. Johan arrives at the inn, seeking rest. Inside the room, the man relaxes in a hot bath. Sinking his body into the water, he feels he can finally rest a little. A soft bed and a hot bath were simple things he never imagined could make him so happy. Before this, he didn't realize how hard it would be to live as a wanderer without a roof over his head. Even though he was born into a noble family, he had never reflected on the luxury of sleeping in an old bed. Everything changed when that mad emperor razed his territory to the ground. Besides him, many other people were also victims of that attack. Still, he survived, which perhaps put him in a better situation than most. Amid his thoughts, he wonders if he should have accepted Karamov's offer. At this rate, the Imperial Army will surely find and execute him. Because of this, he needs to think of another way out, until an idea suddenly strikes him. Those mercenaries could do nothing against Eldons. A band of mercenaries wouldn't be afraid of a simple merchant, but of the company he belongs to. The memory takes him back to what he learned about trading companies in the village market when he was young. Companies connected to the same network share information and funds across borders. When they are powerful, they can influence politicians, nobles, or even a country's army. To survive the empire's persecution, he needs to get close to a trading company at any cost. Still, he decides to leave the more complex thoughts for later, preferring to fill his stomach and go to sleep. Outside, the night slowly moves on. Johan falls asleep in his bed, clutching his own sword. Without a sound, the bedroom door opens slowly. An assassin approaches him, holding a dagger in his hands. He reaches out to grab Johan's sword. Before he can touch it, the noble stops him, grabbing his wrist and asking if they ever get tired of this. The unexpected reaction startles the masked man. Sitting up in bed, Johan demands an answer. He then asks if he is one of Karamov's henchmen. Desperate, the assassin struggles and screams for him to let go. With no apparent effort, Johan throws him through the door. As he hits the floor, the man is grabbed by the leg. Desperate, he drags himself down the hall, begging for help. Too late, the attacker realizes the man he picked a fight with was not human. 5 minutes before the incident, the innkeeper was sleeping soundly at the reception desk. Meanwhile, 2 young men were climbing the stairs in complete silence. Gamson assures Pra that it's fine to leave the job in that guy's hands. Convinced, he states that Vulin, the strongest man in the village, is fast and won't get caught with the dagger and mask he took. At the same time, Pell, the horse fanatic, follows the plan and approaches a warhorse. Carefully, he mounts the animal and tells it to be quiet. Curious, Pra asks Gamson if the nobleman's sword is really that valuable. In response, Gamson asks if he has ever seen a sword capable of cutting a person in half. He says he witnessed that weapon split a soldier in 2, and that something with so much power couldn't be cheap. Besides, that knight is nothing without his sword. Suddenly, the 2 of them peek down the hallway. Before them, they see the attacker on the floor, and the silhouette of Johann standing at the bedroom door. The injured man continues to scream for help. Silently, Gamson watches the scene. Frightened, Pra grabs him and asks what the hell is going on. Without hesitation, Gamson tells him to run if he wants to live. The feeling that something is very wrong takes over, and the certainty that they are doomed sets in. At that moment, the innkeeper appears and asks who they are and what they're up to. Outside, Pell waits with the horses. Seeing the others approaching, he comments that they finally arrived. Annoyed, Gamson yells at him to shut up and get ready to flee. He then turns to Pra and asks where Vulin is. With a trembling voice, Pra replies that he is either dead or about to die. Gamson orders everyone to get on their horses and escape, but Pra is still worried about Vulin. While Pell refuses to abandon him, Gamson warns that the noble might chase them. Suddenly, the inn's roof explodes. Amid the debris, Johann leaps toward them. On the outskirts of the Southern Holy Empire, hanging bodies swing from a lone tree. Nearby, a soldier hammers a wooden stake into the ground. After finishing, he turns to his companion and confirms that the job is done and the stake is firm. Then, the 2 of them nail up a warning notice stating that these people, along with their families, were hanged for stealing a nobleman's property. The decree bears the signature of the Holy Empire's emperor, Cardirian Bizalfurk. One of the soldiers asks what they could have possibly stolen to meet such a cruel end. In response, the other mentions hearing they had stolen a chicken and 3 eggs from Baron Gvorzob's territory. The information sounds absurd even to him, who can't believe the outcome. All of this happened because of such a small crime. Meanwhile, in a nearby tavern, the night is quiet. Seated at a table, Eldons enjoys a meal with a cup of tea. Shortly after, a man approaches and informs him there's a problem. He reports that Gamson, from the mercenary band, was caught trying to steal the belongings of Sir Johann Yates. Hearing the news, Eldons jumps up from his chair, filled with disbelief. Moments later, he sits back down, lamenting the situation, as he had hoped to convince Sir Johann to travel with them to Marseille. With that, Eldons orders Gamson to be captured immediately, and for the rest of the group to pretend they had no involvement. The man obeys promptly, carefully observing the calm with which a merchant from the Katana Company handles a crisis. Alone again, Eldons tries to calm himself, confident he will overcome this problem as he has so many times before. He knows he won't die over something like this, but he still needs to think of a careful way to deal with this nobleman. Elsewhere, a village meeting is taking place. After standing up, the village chief announces the end of that night's meeting. Suddenly, a man runs in, shouting that the leader needs help. He informs them that the troublemakers were caught trying to steal from the nobleman. Annoyed, the village chief slams his fist on the table and calls them useless brats. One of those present asks what should be done, which only increases the leader's irritation. In response, he orders them to gather tributes to offer the noble, and to include one of the slaves kept in the village. He also demands they prepare to execute the troublemakers in front of the nobleman himself. Immediately, the youth's parents protest, stating they can't let their children die. Consumed by fury, the village chief picks up a stool, yells for everyone to shut up, and smashes it on the floor. He then bellows at the parents, asking if they don't understand the gravity of the situation, or if they've forgotten the emperor's decree. Screaming, he states they need to act before the noble does, as it's the only way for them to survive. The imperial decree stated that anyone who coveted a noble's possessions could have their tongue cut out, along with their families, or be sentenced to the gallows. In some places, entire families had already been wiped out because of that absurd decree. All this happened because they demanded a chicken and 3 eggs instead of unpaid wages. After all, to him, all nobles act the same way. The chief then turns to one of the mothers and asks what she thinks the noble their children messed with will do. After offending a noble, he will surely try to punish them somehow, perhaps even by having the entire village beheaded while lecturing about a knight's honor. One of the men argues that this territory belongs to Count Jerpin, and that regardless of the importance of that noble's house, they could ask the count for help. In response, the village chief states that nobles only care about their little games of honor, never about who lives or dies. Slamming the table, he yells for everyone to wake up. While the youth's parents cry, the others remain silent. The chief then asks if they really think he feels good about this. With regret, he laments having to sacrifice their children, but he states the village will survive if the young ones die, and this decision is for the good of all. Later, a crowd gathers under a large tree as the villagers approach. The three young men remain kneeling and tied on the ground, while a fourth man lies fallen beside them. Observing the scene, Johann realizes the situation has gotten out of hand, as they were just village boys who tried to steal his sword. It seems they did it upon noticing the weapon, leading him to decide he must keep it hidden from now on. Part of the blame, he admits, is his for carrying such a sword in the open, deciding just to scare them a little before letting them go. Seated in a chair, Johann waits amidst the crowd. Shortly after, the village chief approaches and asks if the Honorable Sir Johann is all right. Without hesitation, Johann replies that no, he is not all right. He then asks if it's the custom in the village of Rutsbeck to welcome guests by putting blades to their throats and looting their baggage. At this, the village chief throws himself on the ground and offers a sincere apology. Taking the blame, he states that he failed by not keeping those idiots in check. Johann warns one of the boys to be more careful next time and dismisses them all. Suddenly, the village chief pulls out a dagger. Raising the blade over one of the young men's heads, he declares that he will redeem himself by cutting off their heads for Johann's honor. Immediately, Johann holds out his hand and orders him to stop, making it clear that is not his intention. Still, the village chief insists that those who stained Sir Johann's honor deserve to die. Ignoring the order, he raises the dagger again to execute one of the youths. The boy's mother covers her face and apologizes to her son. However, the blade is stopped before it hits its target. Coldly, Johann asks if he didn't hear him say to stop. The village chief and the villagers turn their gazes to Johann. In complete silence, the entire crowd watches the scene. Johann stands up and asks if everyone has gone mad enough to kill people for such a trivial reason. Firmly, he states that if they want them to pay for their crimes, they should make them pay with money. At this, the crowd stares at Johann in silence. Realizing his suggestion might have sounded too obvious, he clears his throat and says he'll repeat himself. He then questions how honor can be more precious than human life, and orders them to untie the youths and get lost. The dagger slips from the village chief's hand and sticks into the ground. Overcome with admiration, the village leader kneels, impressed by Sir Johann's honorable decision. Relieved, Pra's parents run to hug him, happy to see him safe and sound. The village chief still can't believe a noble like that truly exists, confirming that Eldons was telling the truth. As a sign of gratitude, the mercenaries bow, thanking Sir Johann and promising never to forget his kindness. Gamson also apologizes, admitting he didn't realize how honorable the noble was and that he ended up being tricked by an idiot. As the other youths are untied, a man comments that they were lucky, as any other knight would have killed them. At that moment, the mercenary leader approaches Gamson, who urges him to untie him. Bitterly, Gamson laments having joined this unlucky band of mercenaries. Suddenly, the leader grabs his face. Frightened, the young man asks what he is talking about. In a cold tone, the man tells him to relax his body, stating it will make things easier. Soon after, a shadow rises behind Gamson to attack him. As Johann looks back, surprised by the sudden movement, Johann turns around. Gamson's body falls to the ground, executed in front of his fellow mercenaries. Seeing the scene, Johann stands up and asks what the hell they think they're doing. In response, the group's leader justifies himself, saying that under the Emperor's decree, he merely executed the one who coveted a noble's wealth. Johann retorts, stating that his words were not taken seriously, as he was sure he wouldn't have to see their blood. All around, the other mercenaries and Eldons watch everything in silence. Addressing Sir Johann, the leader explains that even mercenaries have honor and rules to follow. According to him, Gamson's cowardly actions trampled on their honor and endangered the group's lives, and his action was just a way to protect those rules. The leader then offers his dagger, stating that if Johann believes his authority has been challenged, he should punish him. At that moment, Johann realizes the man is right, and that the mercenaries have their own honor, something he tries to protect with his own life. With that, Johann sheathes his sword. The crowd around continues to watch the scene in absolute silence. Then, he pushes the leader's blade away with his hand. Frankly, Johann admits that he didn't consider the mercenaries' position and apologizes. The gesture surprises both the mercenaries and Eldons, who never expected to see a noble apologize. Johann then asks Khan to put away the dagger, and the mercenary asks for forgiveness. Soon after, he thanks Khan for his understanding. One of the mercenaries scolds Khan for confronting a noble, but is told he can kick him if he does it again. From a distance, Eldons looks at Johann with new eyes. That noble was different from all the others. Fair and brave, but with no trace of authoritarianism, he sparks a question in Eldons of how someone like that could exist. With this, Eldons decides he will make Johan his ally at any cost, aiming to improve his own reputation within the company. Later, the group continues their journey on a road lit by the sunset. During the trip, Johan examines a pocket watch taken from the spoils. Mounted on his horse, he regrets choosing the item that seemed most valuable, only to find out it was broken. Suddenly, someone approaches from behind. A young woman calls him Master Johan and comments that now she needs to take care of someone else. Soon after, a voice calls to him from a nearby gate. The village chief approaches and offers gifts prepared by the village as a token of gratitude. Among them, Johan recognizes a watch and is surprised they found something so valuable. In addition, the chief also offers him a slave, stating that the boy is good with geography and will be useful. It was the first time Johan had seen a slave in such a deplorable condition, and leaving him like that would put his life at risk. Thanking him for the offer, he asks that they wash and feed the young man while they prepare to leave, at which point the chief announces that Godin has been accepted. Even while taking the boy in, Johan feels uncomfortable with the idea of owning a slave. At night, back at the camp, the mercenaries eat meat around a bonfire, while one of them tells Khan not to drink alcohol. Godin approaches Johan, who is cleaning his sword, and calls him master. The youth hands him a meal, and Johan thanks him. He then asks Godin to change how he addresses him and to start calling him by his name. Grateful, the boy thanks him, while Johan wonders if the kid is actually a woman. Curiously, he asks how someone skilled in geography ended up becoming a slave, but Godin replies it's not a pleasant story. The youth then asks if bad things also happen to nobles. Johan replies he'd like to hear his story first, and Godin agrees. He begins by saying he was originally a peddler, responsible for transporting and reselling weapons in the eastern region. Over time, on a nobleman's orders, he ended up involved in gold smuggling. Hearing this, Johan comments that such a crime would lead to the death penalty and that he was lucky to have survived. Godin explains he needed a lot of money to support his family, as his younger siblings were sick and starving. For this reason, he continued to deliver the gold the nobleman told him to hide, until one day, he was reported by the nobleman himself. Johan deduces that after serving his purpose, he was discarded and asks if he at least tried to ask for a trial. Shaking his head, Godin says that because of the emperor's decree, he wasn't even given the right to speak. At this, Johan asks if he managed to send the money to his siblings. The youth explains that to avoid immediate execution, all the money was used to bribe the guards. Godin apologizes, but Johan replies that he has nothing to be sorry for. This world was cruel enough to make him grind his teeth. Without power, people were treated like criminals, exploited without any chance to resist the atrocities of the nobles. Not even the private soldiers of House Brits escaped, surviving by stealing from others. Nor the people of Rutzbeck, who were driven to sacrifice their own children to survive. Let alone Godin, turned into a slave after being used and discarded. Johan wonders if all of this is really fair. Immediately after, he reminds himself that it's not the time to worry about the world, as he's being hunted by the Emperor's army and could die at any moment. Then, he calls for Godin, who responds promptly. Firmly, Johan declares that they are now comrades and that they must survive and live well together. The young woman blushes. Suddenly, a mercenary approaches and announces that a monster has appeared nearby. Johan stands up, lamenting he doesn't even have time to rest. Without delay, he asks where the creature is, and the man points the way as they all run. Godin stays behind, silently repeating Johan's words. Upon reaching the others, he asks if the monster is nearby. In response, they say it's too dark to see clearly, but there's definitely something in the darkness. At that moment, Johan emerges from behind the bushes, causing the mercenaries to tell him to get down. Calmly, he just says that it's all right. Johan then orders them to put away their weapons, leaving the mercenaries completely confused. Johan says he's going to take a look, and then turns to enter the dark forest. Khan states that fighting monsters requires special skills, and that it's always dangerous. In a serious tone, he reinforces that the group's mission is to protect Eldons, and that they can't take unnecessary risks. Suddenly, Johan stops and closes his eyes, saying he can feel something. Taking a few steps forward, he approaches a bush and recognizes a familiar pressure, capable of freezing anyone's heart. In the middle of the darkness, a pair of eyes stands out before him. Johan identifies the creature as the Black Wolf of Ill Omen, the same bastard from before. The last time he met it, the animal attacked the wolves of ActionToon instead of him. Even though it had countless chances, the creature never attacked him. That's why Johan knows the wolf doesn't intend to harm him. Calmly, he asks the hidden creature to come out. From the shadows, the huge black wolf emerges before him. Extending his hand, Johan asks if the wolf followed him and thanks it for saving him before. Khan asks if Johan really knows how to handle monsters, while one of the mercenaries admits he's never seen anything like it. The large wolf slowly approaches and sniffs Johan's face. Suddenly, the animal bites down on his head, causing one of the mercenaries to scream his name in panic. At that moment, Eldon steps forward and tells the little punk to get out of the way. With his head still in the wolf's mouth, Johann asks everyone not to be scared of the big guy. Holding the animal firmly, he reveals that this creature is the Guide of the Dawn. Excited, Eldons just asks if it's true. Confused, Johann repeats the name Guide of the Dawn, not understanding its meaning. Then Eldons begins to explain that in the Eastern Empire, there's an old song about this creature. According to the legend, on a moonlit night during the age of the Great War, a warrior gave the wolf a name. That name was Guide of the Dawn, and the wolf, upon receiving it, bowed its head before the warrior. Its eyes shone brightly, and everyone shouted as they saw it run at the forefront of the battlefield. At the end of the war that divided the continent, the warrior brought peace and died a hero. The black wolf cried for 3 days and 3 nights, then left on a journey towards places where order and heroes were needed. That is the legend of the Guide of the Dawn. Johann asks if Eldons isn't mistaken, as that creature is known as the Black Wolf of Ill Omen. In response, Eldons explains that the Guide of the Dawn originates from the folklore of the Eastern Empire, and that many details were distorted upon reaching the south. Reciting a passage, he says that the Guide of the Dawn punishes evil and submits to a brave hero. Eldons explains that this phrase comes from an ancient text of the Eastern Empire. At that instant, Johann begins to understand what kind of being this creature truly is. Eldons asks for permission to pet the wolf just once, and Johann agrees. However, as soon as he tries to get closer, the wolf growls fiercely at him. Given this, he concludes that maybe he shouldn't do that. Johann pets the wolf, which soon calms down, while Eldons wonders if the creature is only gentle with him. Suddenly, an idea strikes Eldons. He remembers a passage from the folklore of the Eastern Empire, which states that giving a name to the divine beast that follows you makes it your vassal. For a moment, he wonders if this southerner could be the legendary hero, but he quickly dismisses the thought, only to reconsider it a moment later. Eldons then asks Johann if he has already given a name to the Guide of the Dawn, to which he replies that he hasn't had the chance yet. Insistently, he asks Johann to name it right at that moment. According to Eldons, if the legend is true, something incredible will happen. Johann starts to think of a name, while Eldon suggests Katana. At the same time, Volin remembers the last time he witnessed something like this, when he buried that bastard from Cardway. Pointing at the creature, Johann decides the name will be Karamov. Surprised, Eldons reacts immediately, recognizing the name. The wolf's eyes light up with intensity. A sudden force emerges and envelops Johann and Eldons. The creature howls as a powerful energy transforms it. Before them, the Guide of the Dawn appears, now named Karamov. The transformed wolf faces its new master. Calmly, Johann pets it and says he'll be counting on it. Turning to Eldons, he agrees that it is indeed incredible, but asks what he is doing. All around, the mercenaries watch Eldons prostrated on the ground before Johann and Karamov. Overcome with emotion, Eldon states that everything happened exactly as described in the folklore, and that it's the first time he's witnessed a myth with his own eyes. He then declares that he has respected Johann from the moment he saw him. He praises him for protecting them from the bandits, for showing mercy to his enemies, and for being the chosen one of the divine beast. Before everyone, Eldons proclaims him the hero of hard times. The mercenaries and Godin react upon hearing the proclamation. Among murmurs, everyone wonders if Johann is really the hero of hard times. With an uncomfortable expression, Johann turns to Eldons. In a restrained tone, he apologizes. He reveals that he is not the hero they imagine, but just a wanderer from an insignificant house, worried about surviving. Furthermore, he admits that he's being hunted for having beaten Karamov to death. Johann apologizes again for disappointing him, but Eldons denies any feeling of disappointment. He then asks for permission to introduce him to the Mason Trading Company as a way to repay his kindness. Hearing this, Johann remembers hearing that Eldons was going to Marseille and asks what kind of place it is, as he's never heard of it. Eldons explains that Marseille is a famous free trade city and one of the few places the Emperor cannot reach. The information piques Johann's interest. With that, he accepts the offer, stating that he can't ignore such kindness, while Eldons thanks him. Silently, Johann considers that if the Emperor can't reach him there, it might be possible to start a new life as a merchant. While Eldon sings cheerfully, Johann hopes that no rumors spread about him being some kind of hero. Reflecting silently, he thinks about the title Hero of Hard Times, and how nice it would be if he really were someone like that. Still, he recognizes that, both in his past life and now, he is nothing more than a wanderer struggling to stay alive. The memory of an imposing figure comes to mind, decreeing that from that moment on, he would only know suffering. Clenching his fist, Johann admits that life before his death wasn't easy either, but this time is different. Now he decides to move forward step by step, guided by his own will. With that, the group departs towards the city of wealthy merchants, Marcel. Godin remarks that he never imagined he'd be able to return to this place. Walking through the market, Johann suggests they do some shopping. Suddenly, Karamov darts ahead of the group, causing Johann to call out to him. A vendor leans in, calls the animal a cute little thing, and offers it a treat. Watching the scene, Johann realizes that to everyone here, Karamov looks like just an adorable little dog. A day before entering Marcel, the group was gathered in the forest. At that moment, Johann turns to Karamov and calls his name. He explains that a monster of that size would cause a huge commotion in the city, and asks him to wait outside. In response, Karamov's body begins to undergo a transformation. Johann watches intently as the creature takes on a smaller form. Surprised, he asks if the wolf really got smaller and if this is another ability of a divine beast. Without wasting a moment, Godin runs up and hugs the small Karamov, exclaiming how cute he is. Given the situation, Johann concludes that at this size, there probably won't be any problems. Back in the present, a small crowd gathers, commenting on the unusual-looking puppy and wondering if it's a pet from a foreign land. Embarrassed, Godin apologizes for the little one's lack of manners, but Johann says they need to leave quickly, as they're still being pursued. Soon after, Godin calls out to Johann. He offers to take care of all the equipment if they buy a large bag, reminding him that he used to be an equipment merchant. He then shows that he only has 4 silver coins and asks if they can buy everything they need. Then, Godin takes just 1 silver coin. He confidently promises to get everything they mentioned using only that 1 coin. Johann tells him not to get carried away, questioning what could possibly be done with so little money. Sometime later, Godin and Johann are fully equipped, and Johann can hardly believe everything was bought with just 1 coin. They acquired a tactical bag for Johann and a supply backpack for Godin, making it easier to store their items. Using his impressive gift of gab, Godin managed to sell a completely destroyed helmet for a very high price and even got a mace for free. After buying vinegar, oil for equipment maintenance, and other supplies, they still got change back. Somehow, they ended up with more money than they started with. Seeing this, Johann reflects that if a broken helmet could be sold for so much, the equipment he buried for Karamov would be worth much more. He decides that if he ever needs to come back here later, he should dig it up and put it up for sale. Commenting on the matter, Johann observes that Godin seems happy doing such familiar work, and asks if he really was a merchant. While organizing the new backpack, the young man confesses that he missed this life. The memory of when he became a slave comes to mind, living each day in despair and in fear of death. Now, however, after meeting Johann, he feels he has regained the life he had when he was a merchant. Godin sincerely thanks him, stating that even if he had never become a slave, he still would have chosen to travel by his side. Johann says that hearing this makes him happy and that he'll be counting on him from now on. The response is immediate, accompanied by an enthusiastic, "Okay, Johann!" With that, the two decide to explore Marcel. After arriving in the city, Johann, who had only known hardship until then, finally experiences a happiness that had always eluded him. The meat he used to eat felt like shoe leather, while the meat in Marcel simply melts in his mouth. Before, he could barely bathe, and his whole body itched unbearably. In the city, however, he can bathe in warm water whenever he wants. During his travels, he never had a proper place to sleep, and cold, damp rocks hurt his body. In Marcel, he now sleeps under warm, soft blankets. Faced with this, Johann concludes that life here is very good and decides to settle in the city. He dreamed of living happily in Marcel, but fate would not follow the path he desired. The next day, the Marcel city square is bustling with activity. As he walks, Johann comments on how peaceful life seems, since it's been a long time since he's walked calmly through the streets. Suddenly, a strange feeling makes him realize that something is wrong. Noticing a group of people gathered, he wonders if another gang of bandits is nearby. One of the men confirms that criminals took Dave's daughter and stole all the goods they were transporting. Johann continues to eat his skewer while listening to the conversation. Others comment that with bandits on the loose, the people can't live without worry. Hearing this, Godin tells Johann that the city's atmosphere isn't good because of the bandits. Further ahead, a mercenary threatens a vendor, stating that he'll pay later and asking if the man knows who he is. He shouts that he just wants a meat skewer, as he hasn't eaten in 4 days. This man was a straggler from the Actiontoon Wolves mercenary group, who got lost while chasing Johann and ended up in Marcel. He turns to continue the argument but stops abruptly. In that instant, the mercenary and Johann recognize each other. The man calls him a bastard and charges toward him. Johann realizes the Actiontoon Wolves followed him to Marcel, and understands the situation is extremely bad. He knows that nothing good can come from a fight in this place. The mercenary leaps at him with his sword raised, yelling for him to die. Before the blow can land, a man on horseback appears and strikes the attacker. The mercenary falls to the ground, defeated in front of the crowd. Observing the scene, the writer comments that with the current state of security, all sorts of people have been showing up. He then addresses Johan, calling him a wanderer, and asks if he's hurt. Johan replies that he isn't and thanks him for his help. The man smiles and advises him to always take care of himself. Shortly after, he turns and rides down the street. Meanwhile, an army of mercenaries begins to assemble in the square. The troops line up in formation across the entire city square. Bradil, captain of the Oakwood mercenaries, tells everyone not to worry. He confidently assures them that his 500 mercenaries will annihilate the band of bandits and make Marcel safe again. Godin is amazed to see them in person, while Johan asks if they are famous. In response, he explains that the Oakwood mercenaries are among the top mercenary groups in the Empire. Hearing this, Godin realizes that with bandits roaming the region, the group was surely hired to exterminate them. Johan remains silent, just watching the activity around him. In his thoughts, he reflects that if Bradil hadn't shown up to help him, his identity could have been exposed. If that had happened, he would no longer be able to stay in Marcel while the Empire hunted him. The memory of the promise that, from that point on, he would only know suffering returns to his mind. Taking a deep breath, he composes himself, remembering he is still a fugitive. The only way to survive is to build a good relationship with a major trading company, as not even the Emperor can interfere with them. Fortunately, Eldens holds him in high regard, which granted him the chance to interact with the Machen Trading Company. Still, he wonders what would happen if his identity were revealed before then. He concludes that if the company found out the Empire was after him, they wouldn't protect him in any way. If he's exposed before establishing a good relationship with Katana, his death is certain. With his objective clear, Johan clenches his fist, determined to go to the Katana Trading Company and get protection from the Empire. Until he earns the company's trust, his true identity cannot be revealed. Suddenly, a female voice calls out to Johan, asking if it's really him. The beast woman introduces herself as Ibelka, an exclusive employee of the Katana Trading Company. She explains that she heard of his deeds through Eldens and that she would like to form a close bond with him and his house. Finally, Ibelka invites him to accompany her to the Katana Trading Company if he isn't busy. They arrive at the Marcel branch of the Katana Trading Company. Outside, Godin tries to grab Karamov's paw, but the small animal just bites his hand. Alone, Johan waits in a luxurious room. He has finally reached the company, nurturing the hope that this place is his chance to change his life. Just then, a woman approaches from behind, confirms if he is Mr. Johan, and mentions she heard about him from Eldens. As he turns, Johan sees her stand up to introduce herself formally. She identifies herself as Yaon, the manager of the Marcel branch of the Katana Trading Company. Introducing himself in return, Johan says he is from the House of Yaitz, and she expresses the same pleasure in meeting him. Next, Yaon invites him to talk over a cup of tea, and he agrees. A hot beverage, a trade good from the Mediterranean region, is served before him. She comments that she hopes the drink is to his liking. Johan thanks her, though he realizes it's coffee. Curiously, he asks if the tea is made from roasted fruit seeds, and is praised by Yaon for his perception. Then she suggests they get down to business. Eon states that they can already guess the reason for his visit, causing Johan to spill his drink in surprise. He immediately wonders if they've discovered he's being hunted by the Emperor. Noticing his reaction, Eon begins to explain what she really meant. According to her, the reason is that Johan harbors ambition in his heart. Confused, he doesn't understand the statement. Yeon then reveals that she learned from Eldens that he protected the innocent and showed mercy to his enemies. Seeing him arrive in Marcel, a city infested with bandits, she perceived his ambition to save it with his own hands. Faced with this, Johan agrees, admitting that she saw his true intentions. Yeon asserts that ambition is not a bad thing, but a virtue of those who are worthy. Furthermore, she adds that the company enjoys sponsoring the ambitions of those it deems deserving. Johan realizes this is a clear opportunity for a deal. If he wishes, Yaon offers to introduce him to the governor of Marcel. He understands that the governor serves a role similar to a mayor, and that with this, he could gain the support of both the company and the city. Given this possibility, he concludes that he must accept, as then not even the Emperor would be able to reach him. Thanking her for the offer, Johan asks what exactly the Katana Trading Company's sponsorship entails. Ioan explains that the company's support grants access to all the services it offers, such as restaurants, inns, and entertainment. Raising a finger, however, she warns that there is one condition. He must promise to fight under the company's banner. Ioan demands that he fight for them whenever his help is needed. Johan asks if this means dealing with the bandits, but she denies it. She clarifies that the Oakwood mercenaries have already left for that mission, and that for him, another task is reserved. He remains silent for a moment before asking what this other task would be. Ion explains that the number of merchant districts resentful of the company has been growing, accusing them of monopolizing the market. She then proposes that he eliminate the members of these disgruntled districts, and, preferably, their children as well. She looks him straight in the eye and asks what he thinks of this single condition. Johan remains silent, reflecting on the proposal. The sun sets over the Katana Company branch in Marseille. Sometime later, Johan leaves the building. Outside, Godin greets him cheerfully and asks how the meeting went. In response, Johan just stares at the horizon, making Godin call his name. Suddenly, Johan excitedly yells to Godin that they're going to suck some honey. Confused, Godin just stares at him, repeating the phrase, "suck some honey?" An hour earlier, Johan and Eon were still talking in the meeting room. At that moment, Johan refuses her proposal. He argues that in a large city like Marseille, it's natural for complaints to arise when someone dominates distribution. He then questions if, instead of solving the problem through dialogue, she expects him to kill these people, including their children. He firmly states that he cannot murder innocents for such a reason and refuses to do so. Finally, he suggests they pretend this agreement never existed. Eon and Johan stare at each other in silence for a few moments. Then, her expression subtly changes. Eon informs him that he passed, leaving Johan confused. Bowing slightly, she explains it was all just a test to see if he was suitable for sponsorship, which leads him to ask if the monopoly was fake. The manager clarifies that the company has never monopolized distribution and is actually well regarded among merchants. She adds that she wishes to maintain the proposed terms, but that doesn't mean he needs to go to a battlefield immediately. Ian explains that the Oakwood mercenaries have already left to subdue the bandits, and that in the meantime, he is free to rest and enjoy the sponsorship. She then extends her hand and invites him to join the company. Johan enthusiastically accepts the offer. The two shake hands, sealing the deal, and Johan expresses his wish for the partnership to be beneficial for both of them. Back outside, Godin asks what the expression, "suck some honey," means. Johan explains that it's a way of saying they're going to spend big on something expensive using the Katana Trading Company's money. Soon after, Godin asks if the negotiations went well, and he confirms he finally got the sponsorship. The young man congratulates him, and Johan thanks him. In his mind, he reflects that everything is going well, since he secured support as soon as he arrived in Marseille. Although the bandits are still causing trouble, he believes that once the mercenaries deal with them, the city will become peaceful again. The happy life he always dreamed of no longer seems distant, so he decides it's time to relax. As they walk down the street, a sudden scream rings out. A crowd gathers around several bodies scattered on the ground. Johan wonders what happened and why there are bodies exposed in public, as Godin calls out to him. Goran approaches and warns that he is here, prompting Johan to ask what is happening. In response, Goran explains that the bandits have become more violent, now murdering merchants' families to intimidate the city. One of the bloodied bodies lies on the stone ground of the square. Observing the scene, Johan realizes the situation is far from resolved. Among the crowd, a citizen shouts that nothing is being done, and that the city of Marseille should be held responsible. Another man suggests the emperor is behind the bandits, but the idea is quickly dismissed as absurd. The crowd begins to argue, with some defending the emperor and others accusing him. The voices overlap in accusations and shouts from all sides, as Johan watches the chaos unfold. Facing the scene, he sees the newfound peace in Marseille being destroyed by the bandits. He then begins to wonder what the mercenaries are doing. In her office, Ibelka rushes in and announces that she has terrible news for manager Ion. Already aware of the bodies that were found, Ion asks what the Oakwood mercenaries are doing. Ibelka hesitates for a moment before answering. She reports that they haven't been able to contact the Oakwood mercenaries, which leads Eon to question what exactly that means. Ibelka then reveals that the liaison officer's body was found near the forest the day before, in a truly horrible state. Eon reflects that the Oakwood mercenaries have a military force comparable to that of an entire city, and can't imagine them being defeated by a mere band of bandits. Gripped by tension, she slams the table and calls for Ibelka, who responds promptly. The manager orders her to bring Swetelga, the mage of the Iphiel River, to find out through his prophecies if they were truly defeated. The Iphiel River flows under the moonlight. Swetelga dips his hand into the water and claims to understand the situation. He tells Katana that she is mistaken and that looking for the mercenaries will change nothing. According to the prophecy, Johan, the man who killed the emperor's hound and fled, is now hiding in the pocket of Marseille. Still, Swetelga asserts that things will not go as that bastard imagined. At the Merchants Guild in Marseille, the imposing building awaited visitors. Opening the door, a long-bearded gentleman cleared his throat to announce his presence. Startled, a maid with cat ears turned, reacting with surprise to the unexpected visitor. She welcomed Lord Sudelger, thanking him for answering their request. Grabbing her, he asked if this was how they showed gratitude, complaining that his spear had rusted waiting. He stated he would escort Lady Ion, then immediately said it wouldn't be necessary. Fearfully, she replied that if the matter were urgent, the lady would have come herself. He warned her not to make him repeat himself. Seated in a room, the gentleman waited alone, clearing his throat again impatiently. Touching his throat, he recalled the river's voice saying it would meet him here. Just then, a young man appeared with a small animal at his side. Looking up at the guild, he commented that he'd finally meet the governor of Marseille. Walking toward the entrance, he talked about befriending the governor to establish himself. His steady footsteps led him inside the large, dark building. Once inside, he wondered what a governor should look like and regretted not asking. Seeing his companion growl, he asked what was wrong with Karamaf. Interrupting the lad, the old man said Karamaf was no name for a divine beast. Maintaining a serious gaze, he stared at the old man he'd just encountered. In return, the long-bearded gentleman observed him intensely. He asked who the old man was, noting that he didn't seem to know him either. Introducing himself, the man said his name was Swedelgur, a sage of the river Yahello. Crouching beside his beast, the young man asked what exactly a sage was. Noticing the youth's surprise, the old man explained that he was simply a mage. He became excited, remembering that real magic existed in this world. Fists clenched, he celebrated finding a mage on his very first day. Grabbing the mage, he said it was a pleasure and that he'd always wanted to meet one. Slightly awkward, the mage replied, yes, but quickly changed the subject. He then commented that the lad was lucky for someone hunted by the emperor. Revealing his source, he said the river's magic let him see past and future. Worried, the lad asked if the mage planned to turn him over to the emperor. Questioning his concern, the mage asked why he would ever do such a thing. Wide-eyed, the young man listened to the mage's answer in complete surprise. Turning away, the mage said he knew the river's secrets and sought nature's mysteries. He stated that political disputes didn't interest him, only the voice of the river moved him. Furthermore, he explained that if that had been his intention, he would have turned him in silently. Sensing the truth in those words, the lad relaxed and showed a faint smile. Clasping his hands together, he asked if Lord Swedelgur could teach him magic. His eyes shone with possibility as he approached the mage with great excitement. At a glance, a common knight might say that mages are mere fearful scholars. Back in the moment, the mage wondered why this particular knight was so animated. Getting closer, the lad asked how magic was used and if a common person could do it. He saw this as his great chance to become a magic swordsman and survive. Agreeing, the mage said destiny had united them, so there was no harm in teaching him. But he warned that he would only teach him if the youth won one round of a game. Suggesting an alternative to chess, the lad asked if it could be arm wrestling. Imagining victory, he saw himself snapping the mage's wrist in the match. The mage laughed at the suggestion, saying arm wrestling wouldn't benefit anyone. He then said that the game of kings was fine, but it didn't compare to the game of the gods. Placing a board on the table, the mage prepared for the challenge. Next, he positioned 2 bowls of game pieces onto the board. Recognizing the game, the young man was visibly surprised by the mage's choice. He realized the game chosen for their challenge was Go. Gesturing to the sofa, the mage asked the lad to sit for the match. He asked if the game seemed complicated and promised to go easy on him. Sizing up the situation, the lad believed luck was on his side once again. Remembering the past, he visualized himself winning a Go tournament during his time in the army. Picking up a piece, he prepared for the match against the mage. Piece in hand, he vowed to win the challenge at any cost. The mage suggested they start the match in a calm and friendly manner. With a confident smile, the lad wished his new opponent a good game. Raising the piece, he prepared to win and claim magical knowledge as his reward. 50 minutes later, the two continued the match, seated face-to-face in silence. Staring at the board, the youth looked tense, while the mage let out a long sigh. With a sweaty face, he called out to discuss the game. Begging to redo moves, the mage heard the youth's refusal, having already allowed it 5 times. Slapping the table, the mage shouted that it was absurd to lose at the game of the gods. He asked if it was the youth's first time playing, noting that not even the Sultan had beaten him. Responding modestly, the lad said it was only because the mage had taught him so well. Maintaining a fixed gaze, he prepared for the next round of the intense challenge. The mage proposed one more game, promising a helpful gift if he lost again. Smiling, the lad accepted, wondering if the gift would be a magical item. He then asked how many handicap stones he should give the mage in the new match. A bit embarrassed, the mage replied that he only needed a 3-stone handicap. Holding a piece, the youth said they could finally begin the next match. Starting the game, the mage asked why a noble like him was so interested in magic. He explained that since he was being hunted by the emperor, any new skill would be very useful. Placing his hand on the board, the mage warned that his knowledge wasn't meant for combat. Surprised, the lad asked if it couldn't be used in a fight, and the mage questioned his plan. The lad said he would answer, as he had heard of people using magic to fight. With a serious look, the mage warned him not to treat the subject as a joke. Explaining the concept, he said mages were those who discovered mysteries in nature. He cited that some found mystery in the wind, others in fire or sulfur. Back in the room, he mentioned some idiot who found a mystery in the Black Forest. Then he revealed that such mysteries were spirits, whose power mages borrowed. He continued saying spirits lent power, but their whims could cost dearly. Finishing his warning, he advised care not to offend a spirit's will. Faced with the risks, the lad lamented the end of his plan to become a magic swordsman. Outside, 2 women ran up and asked if Lord Sudalgar was there. Upon arriving, one asked why she hadn't been notified, while the other explained their request. Seeing the mage in the room, the newcomer called his name with a smile. Observing the scene, the newcomer noticed the mage challenging a new opponent in the game. Wide-eyed, she reacted with complete surprise to what she saw. At the table, the mage begged to redo a move, but the lad denied the request. Shocked, she realized that Lord Sudalgar was being pressured in the game of the gods. Smiling, the youth told the mage to simply accept the situation as it was. Interrupting the match, she approached and said she had finally found Lord Sudalgar. She then asked why he hadn't called for her, and if he was having fun with Johann. Laughing awkwardly, he replied that he was just exchanging a few moves with the knight. Announcing that the game was over, he cleared the board and ended the match right there. Holding a single piece, the lad observed the now completely empty board in front of him. Clearing his throat, the mage placed 2 flasks on the table and told the lad to take them. Looking at the flasks, he asked Lord Sudalgar what exactly they were. Fulfilling his promise, he revealed that they were the water of wrath and the water of blessing. Scene change. A mercenary group's flag waves over an outpost. Eyes wide, a mercenary stares into the darkness, terrified. The leader shouts, asking what the hell is going on here. From the forest gloom, a pair of red eyes watches the mercenaries. Then, a sinister, hooded figure slowly emerges from the shadows. Behind it, an even larger creature watches everything from the trees with glowing red eyes. Realizing the situation, one of them yells that this isn't the work of mere bandits. Staring fixedly at the creature, his face twists into a mask of horror. Screams echo through the forest as the scene fades under the full moon. Back at the guild, the day's tranquility contrasts sharply with the previous scene. Holding the vials, he asks if these are the waters of wrath and blessing. Explaining the vials, he says the river hides the secrets of life. Continuing, he reveals he failed until Johann's surprising arrival. Detailing their power, he says the red vial cures, and the green one melts. Happy with the gift, he thanks him for the unexpected magic items. He asks if the manager called him because of a prophecy about bandits. Explaining the situation, she says she sent mercenaries but hasn't heard back. Revealing their fate, the mage warns that the group failed 3 days ago. With the revelation, a tense silence takes over the room for a moment. The mage then recites the prophecy about the oak's will being crushed. Concluding the prophecy, he states the mercenary group was likely wiped out. She then warns that the situation demands a meeting, and Johann must act. With a serious look, Johann simply says he understands what needs to be done. Shifting to the council room, the place awaited the meeting's start. Shortly after, council members begin arriving for the emergency session. Among them, a shadowy figure with a wide smile enters the council room. Finally, a man enters and apologizes for arriving a bit late. Identified as Baron Einbeck, he announces the start of the meeting for the sake of Marcel. As he speaks, his strange mustache moves in a very noticeable way. Looking at the Baron, Johann comments quietly about his mustache. Greeting those present, he formally addresses the city council members. Introducing himself with a smile, Villako says he is the governor and it's a pleasure. Determined, Johann decides he must make a good impression to establish himself here. Seeing Marcel's families assembled, the governor thanks everyone for coming. Before they begin, he states he'd like to present a certain noble to the council. Then he announces that the noble is from the Yates family, sponsored by the merchant group. With a nervous smile, Johann introduces himself, saying it's an honor to meet them. In response, all council members clap in a contained, formal manner. Taking his seat, he waits silently for the discussion to begin. Changing the subject, the Baron asks the governor how mercenaries failed against bandits. He then suggests that asking the Empire for help would have easily solved the problem. Outraged, members of the anti-imperial faction shout that the Emperor is to blame for the situation. At this, the pro-imperial faction orders them to be silent, calling the accusation blasphemy. Watching the argument, Johann just smiles, not understanding what the politicians are bickering about. Sensing the danger, he knows his identity cannot leak under any circumstances. Keeping calm, the governor merely observes the heated discussion without saying a word. Standing up, he asks the citizens of Marseille for silence to continue the meeting. With the governor's order, absolute silence takes over the council room. Johann, sitting in his chair, attentively watches the governor's posture. The guild manager stands up, clears her throat, and prepares to speak to the council. She says the governor shares their concerns and has already formulated a new plan. Then she reveals the plan is to form a second force and attack the bandits. Surprised, council members react to the news of a new attack force. The Baron says it's a wise decision, as the Emperor values peace. He continues, asserting that the Emperor's army is ready to be deployed at any moment. Imagining the scene, Johann panics at the thought of being executed by the army. With a worried look, he hopes the governor refuses the Baron's offer. With a smile, the governor thanks the Baron for the help, but refuses the proposal. Explaining his decision, he says the Emperor is busy, and he doesn't want to bother him. Then he announces that Marcel will form a new mercenary unit, including Johann. Accepting the decision, the Baron says the Emperor will recognize the governor's loyalty. Relieved, he realizes he dodged a huge bullet with that decision. He notices the governor's closeness with the Baron, who is clearly pro-imperial. Thinking about the situation, he remembers hearing that Marcel was untouchable by the Empire. Closing the meeting, she announces that a small reception has been prepared for the guests. While other members withdraw, the Baron remains seated with eyes closed. The governor stands up and asks for a moment to speak alone with Johann. With a smile, the governor calls to him, and he agrees to talk privately. Worried, he decides to give vague answers and flee if he discovers Villaco is pro-imperial. Lamenting his luck, he wonders if he'll have to go back to being a wanderer. Calling Johann, the governor invites him to his private office. Watching the two depart, the Baron just adjusts his mustache with a suspicious look. Entering the office, the governor asks Johann to feel completely at home. Sitting down, he asks the young man to remind him which family he said he was from. With a smile, he replies that his name is Johann Yates, of the Yates family. Keeping the smile, he awaits the governor's reaction to his answer. Surprised, the governor asks if he is really from the famous Yates family. He says the family is famous for a special drink from the north. Revealing a bottle, he says that by coincidence, he has his family's drink. At this, he places 2 glasses on the small table between them. Offering the drink, he says Johann must feel homesick. He then fills the young man's glass, who thanks the host for his kindness. With a smile on his face, the governor watches Johann take the offered drink. Smiling, he comments that the drink really brings back memories of home. Laughing, the governor says he's happy to hear that from his guest. Changing the topic, he asks if the rest of the Yates family is doing well. He then mentions the Emperor's cold wind that swept tragically through the north. Johann just listens in silence while the governor continues talking about the past. He recounts that many families were purged, with survivors turning into bandits. Finally, he says a member of those families is wanted for treason. With a serious look, he says he believes the family was actually Eitz. Responding, Johann says he doesn't know it, as it's the first time he's heard the name. His red eyes remain fixed on the young man, silently observing his reaction. Laughing suddenly, he apologizes for letting the conversation go on too long. With a nervous laugh, Johann replies it was no problem at all for him. Then the governor stands up and asks if he happened to notice one thing. He reveals the drink was just cheap whiskey, not from the Yates family. Hearing the revelation, the young man's eyes go wide in complete silence. Ordering him to stop the word games, he calls him by the name Johann Eitz. He reacts with shock as his identity is revealed. Stepping back, the governor claims he has no intention of handing him over to the Emperor, but then he spins around, adding that perhaps he does after all. Confused by the whiplash answer, he asks exactly what that's supposed to mean. Villaco explains that his decision is based solely on what is best for Marcel. He goes on to say that no one can say for sure what the city really needs right now. Listening intently, he hears the plan to use a delicate balance to protect the town. Declaring the bandits the top priority, he orders Johann to exterminate them. The governor then warns that he will send him straight to the Emperor if he fails. Outside, he leans against a stone railing, exhausted. He laments having another leash around his neck and questions if he should just flee. Remembering the hardships he's already faced, he confronts the new mission head-on. Resolved, he yells that there's no such thing as a free lunch and he'll clean up this mess. A child calls out to him, pointing excitedly at the arrival of the subjugation force. Glancing at the sky, he wonders if this is the army Villaco assembled. Watching from a distance, they see the second anti-bandit subjugation force assembled. Gathered there are the mercenaries, along with the knight orders from the Aina and Galanto monasteries. Impressed by their caliber, Johann asks if they're famous. She confirms they are legendary. She explains that the Galanto monastery is an order of knights renowned for their alchemy. The Aina monastery consists of female knights rumored to be incredibly strong. As for the mercenaries, she describes them as loyal dwarves, excellent at sieges, and very open-minded. Pointing out the knights, she mentions that Count Bartok is also present with his elves. She then whispers to him that, despite their fame, the elves tend to be quite rude. She apologizes for saying it, but he assures her it's fine, and decides to go meet his companions. Against the blue sky, the group's flag snaps in the wind, marking their presence there. Just then, Captain Kumal of the mercenaries greets Lady Ion with a cheerful shout. Thanking them for coming, she introduces Johan as the knight who will be fighting alongside them. He tells her to relax, noting he can't be too casual with the captain. Finding this attitude wise, the captain assures him that no one will doubt his authority. Johan smiles, thanks him, and says he will remember the captain's advice. He then asks how the Holy Knights plan to move during the battle. One of the knights responds that they will move alongside Captain Kumal's troops. The two commanders, Valian and Aganti, formally introduce themselves to the group. With a hand over his heart, the captain expresses his gratitude for the knights' consideration. Observing the interaction, Johan notes the dwarf's sharp perception and reasonable nature. He turns to the manager and asks why she gathered so many troops. Shortly after, the steady cadence of horse hooves approaches the group. Riding up, Knight Bartok Gustav claims that his group alone would have been more than sufficient. Two other knights agree, remarking that there must be some other reason for them all being there. Hearing the conversation, one knight turns with a confused look on his face. He addresses Johan, asking if he is the knight belonging to that flag. Answering firmly, he confirms it, and introduces himself as Johan of the Yates family. The knight sneers, saying he's never heard of that family before. Pointing at Johan, he warns him not to expect any help if he runs into trouble on the field. With a serious gaze, Johan simply replies that he will keep that in mind for the future. The knight states they won't be accepting orders from the captain and warns them not to seek their aid. Sitting high on his horse, he orders the manager to prepare a banquet in his honor, and she agrees. Animated, he shouts for everyone to move out, and the knights depart ahead of the main group. Watching the scene, Johan realizes exactly why the captain was verifying the chain of command earlier. Despite the friction, he believes the gathered forces can defeat the bandits. To the side, a maid approaches the manager to whisper a secret message in her ear. The manager then turns to Johan and lets him know that someone wants to meet with him tonight. Surprised, he points at himself and asks if it's Governor Velako again. Wearing a nervous expression, she hesitates to give him a clear answer. Cutting to nighttime, the soldiers are celebrating in the encampment before the upcoming battle. Amidst the festivities, one of the elves drinks while surrounded by women. He raises his mug high, toasting the death of their enemies with everyone present. Far from the party noise, an old man complains about how annoying the knights are. Walking alone, Johan reminds himself that refusing a drink can be seen as an insult. He reflects that it implies a lack of trust in one's allies, a sentiment the old man had agreed with. Arriving at a door, he knocks and hears a voice from within telling him to enter. Upon opening the door, he finds a dark and silent room. He asks who wished to see him, and the person responds by ordering him to take a seat. Seeing more alcohol available, he wonders how nobles survive drinking every single day. Nursing a headache, he figures at least it isn't the cheap stuff from earlier. Filling 2 glasses, the man asks if money is his only motivation for fighting. With a wry smile, Johan asks who the man is and why he is being so rude. Ignoring the question entirely, the man simply shifts in his armchair without responding. Instead, he introduces himself as Baron Einbeck, a loyal citizen of the Emperor. Hearing this, Johan stares at him with a mix of surprise and distrust. The Baron remarks that Marcel acts in an anti-imperial manner, despite claiming neutrality. He then asks if Johan understands the reason for their meeting, but Johan simply says no. Speechless, the Baron grabs his mustache, surprised by the direct answer. Offering an excuse, Johan claims he isn't good at understanding complicated things. Laughing, the Baron says he expected as much and decides to offer some advice. Filling his glass again, he states that merchants generally need both profit and power. Raising the glass, he declares that Johan is the power of the group, someone who knows how to fight. Johan asks why the Baron thinks that, considering he is from the Yates family. The Baron reveals that he investigated and couldn't find a trace of that family anywhere. Surprised, Johan realizes that even the Baron has discovered the truth about him. The Baron then recounts that the Yates family, a similar name, did actually exist in the past. Recalling the event, he states that the entire family was wiped out due to betrayal. Johan retorts that it doesn't matter if it's Yates or Yates, because Marcel accepted him regardless. Tired of the conversation, Johan asks directly what the Baron actually wants from him. Pointing a finger, the Baron orders Johan not to go on the subjugation mission and instead use his power for the Emperor. Johan just stares back in silence, offering no immediate response to the proposal. The Baron continues, framing the offer as a chance to become part of the Empire. Furthermore, he could obtain a formal knight's title and fertile territory of his own. Getting excited, the Baron insists that glory and peace await him if he accepts. He argues that it is natural for the weak to fight while the strong reap the rewards. Doubling down, the Baron claims it is the destiny of the weak to be killed by bandits. Shouting now, he declares that those who die do so because of their own failings. With a slight smile, Johan flatly refuses the Baron's proposal. Surprised, the Baron stares at him with total incredulity written on his face. Johan then recounts how one of the Emperor's Emperor's men invaded his territory and slaughtered his family. Looking directly at the Baron, he says that Man offered him the exact same deal. Johann reveals that he naturally refused the offer back then, but the Baron points out a supposed difference in the situation. Looking straight into the Baron's eyes, Johann reveals that the Emperor's man died by his own hands. The Baron's eyes go wide, shocked by the young man's revelation. Johann continues, describing how he crushed the Imperial Knight's head without hesitation. On that day, the knight's shining golden armor was completely destroyed in the battle. Terrified, the Baron asks if Karamov, the Emperor's famous knight, truly died. Standing up, Johann confirms that he is the sole survivor of the destroyed Eitz family. Grabbing his glass, he prepares to end the conversation with the terrified Baron. He downs some wine, then pours the rest over the questioning Baron. With just one hand, he crushes the metal goblet, demonstrating his raw strength. He then uses the crumpled metal to strike the table with all his might. Seeing the table and goblet destroyed, the Baron shrinks away in abject fear. Turning his back, Johann warns that he will handle the bandits on his own terms, not for anyone else. He then issues a final warning. If the Baron breathes a word of this, he will be next. Leaving the threat hanging in the air, he exits the room and slams the door behind him. Now alone, he questions if the Baron actually thinks he can get away with this. Walking down the hallway, he suddenly stops, feeling something strange coursing through his body. His eyes widen as he realizes something very grave is happening. His heart feels like it's burning, and he realizes he can no longer breathe properly. Blood begins to trickle from his nose, and he clutches his chest in agony. With more blood gushing out, his condition seems to worsen by the second. Remembering the wine, he finally realizes that the Baron has poisoned him. Collapsing to the floor, he curses the Baron before losing consciousness. Lying there, he realizes he has been defeated in the most unexpected way. Meanwhile, the Baron watches him with a victorious look, casually adjusting his mustache. His face reveals the deep satisfaction he feels with the result of his treacherous plan. With a wide, terrifying smile, his victory finally seems complete. Back at camp, soldiers keep celebrating under the starry sky. A young female mercenary gets surrounded by women commenting on how thin she is. They invite her to join the fun, pressuring the girl teasingly. Blushing, she breaks free and runs away from the group. Watching her flee, one woman laments missing the chance to dress her in pretty clothes. Running down a dark hallway, she yells for Johann, saying the place is creepy. Crying, she says Suatuga is in trouble and they need to go back soon. Stopping suddenly, she spots a hand belonging to someone lying on the ground ahead. Eyes wide, she stares at the fallen person, totally paralyzed by the scene. Kneeling down, she screams Johann's name, finding him unconscious. Touching his face, she asks what happened, seeing so much blood. Desperate, she screams for help, warning that Johann is going to die like this. Holding him in her arms, she begs him to hang on and fight it. A red liquid is poured, indicating a potion is being used. Johann is placed inside a barrel filled with the red liquid for healing. Recovered, he takes a deep breath while the young girl watches him worriedly. Confused, she says his name, not understanding what's going on there. She forces him to drink the potion Swetelga gave him. Thanking her, he says he survived because she found him in the hallway in time. Sitting in a chair, he thanks Swetelga, saying he'd be dead without the potion. The mage scolds him, saying it was reckless to meet the Baron. Then he warns him to use the rest of the potion wisely, since only half is left. Afterwards, the mage asks if he managed to capture Baron Einbeck in the end. Explaining the situation, he says when he arrived, the Baron had already fled. In a flashback, he screams the Baron's name, ordering the traitor to show himself. Surrounded by guards, he charges forward, shouting that he won't forgive him again. Just then, one of the guards informs him that the man he mentioned has already escaped. Back in the present, he just hears the news in silence, his face still bruised. Stepping on a letter, he realizes something important was left behind on the floor. Smiling, he shows the letter, saying he found something more important. Holding the letter, he says everything about the incident is written there. The mage asks if the letter proves the Emperor hired the bandits. Denying it, he says something much more serious is written in that document. Scene change. A lone knight rides out of a gate under the full moon. Riding through the forest, the Baron makes his way through the dark night. Smiling, he thinks that by now, Johann Eitz must already be dead. Satisfied, he continues onward, believing everything went according to the Emperor's will. Arriving at a camp, guards announce Sir Einbeck's arrival to everyone. A blonde man receives him, and he just replies with a nod. Getting off his horse, he prepares to speak to the men gathered there. Facing the army, he readies a speech to motivate the troops. Shouting, he tells everyone they aren't simple bandits. He claims they are the Empire's strongest mercenaries, bound by gold. Continuing, he says glory will be theirs for their loyalty to the Emperor. Finally, he yells that he's been rotting Marcel from the inside for a long time. Shouting, he says they will die in chaos without knowing who the enemy is. Before his troops, he prepares for the next phase of his plan. Satisfied with the speech, he turns to continue with the knight's orders. Looking at the stars, he announces that the emperor sent an imperial mage. Surprised, the men wonder if it's the famous Kazgal of the Crimson Flame. A sinister figure emerges from the darkness, shrouded in a strange mist. Approaching, she says she didn't expect to be confused with a common mage. Revealing her face, she says she is an imperial mage esteemed by the emperor himself. Introducing herself, the imperial mage says her name is Janina. Scared, the men wonder if she's a snake beast woman and if they can trust her. She replies that of course they haven't heard of her, as she doesn't deal with elements. Revealing her specialty, she says her true power lies in dealing with living weapons. With her hands, she begins to mold something with mysterious energy. Holding a vial, she confirms that's exactly what they heard. With a strong tremor, the earth begins to move beneath the mercenary's feet. With her hands, she makes the ground shake and open up before everyone. Seeing the scene, the men's eyes go wide, completely terrified. From the depths of the earth, a gigantic creature emerges to join the battle. Smiling, the mage says her beloved troll will help them on the mission. Shouting, the Baron says tomorrow will be the day they crush Marcel's forces. Raising his fist, he orders everyone to offer up the city of Marcel. With a war cry, he completes the order, telling them to offer it to the emperor. Excited, one of the men shouts for the Sacred Empire to live long. Then, all the troops shout in unison for the long life of the emperor. Back again, Johann just listens to the conversation, his face still dirty and bruised. Just then, the young mercenary calls him, saying she's there to help. Holding the letter, he asks her to send it to Governor Viaco Tranieni. Handing over the document, he says it's something the governor needs to confirm personally. With the mage beside him, he calls for Goran and Khan to approach. Watching the night, the mage wonders why the river saved him. He then questions what the river is trying to do through that night. On the day of departure, the dwarf captain waited by Marcel's gate. The second bandit extermination force was assembled and ready to move. Hands clasped, a knight prayed, declaring his god to be his refuge. Johann, already mounted, rode out to join the main body of troops. Someone signaled to him, calling him over for a goodbye. Wishing him luck, the young woman asked him to show his worth in battle. The mage replied that this wasn't his first expedition and told her to take care. Waving back, he announced their departure and followed the army. Riding beside the wagons, he took his position for the long march ahead. The captain welcomed him, noting his arrival. Johann confirmed he was ready. Hand signals flashed as the captain prepared to give the order to attack. With a shout of command, he addressed the awaiting army. He gave the final order, bellowing for the entire army to advance immediately. The elven knights echoed the cry, charging forward with drawn swords. Taking the lead, the elf cavalry headed the great army's advance. Watching the scene, Johann understood why Kumal had been ordered to attack. Repeating the order, the captain prepared the command to move out. A war horn sounded, signaling the entire army to advance. From his balcony, the governor watched the departure, the manager standing beside him. Smiling, she commented that the extermination force had finally left. Without turning, the governor listened to her comment in silence. Holding up a letter, he asked if she had read its contents. She confirmed, stating the letter was found in the Baron's room the previous night. Pacing, he commented on the convenient timing and location of the discovery. From the balcony, a guard voiced doubts about the letter's authenticity. She interrupted, insisting the seal was undoubtedly from the House of Einbeck. Seeing the seal, he realized the Baron appeared to be the mastermind. She revealed they tried to interrogate the Baron, but he had already fled the city. Even so, he said he couldn't trust the young knight, fearing the guild. She countered, saying the guild only supported those of true value. Smiling, he claimed to understand, but issued a warning to the manager. If the knight's actions broke the city's balance, the guild would not escape responsibility. Watching the governor, she wondered if he belonged to the pro-emperor faction. As he stood with his back to her, the question of his loyalty hung in the air. At the imperial camp, a man asked if Baron Einbeck was present. Smiling, another man confirmed the information received from a messenger. The Baron claimed they would fall into the trap, delivering Marcel into the emperor's hands. Laughing, a man said now they just had to wait for news of victory. Another suggested their first order of business should be patrolling the brothels. Janina turned and asked why the Baron had suddenly gone pale. Waving his hands, he replied it was nothing to worry about. His eyes, however, betrayed a deep concern he tried to hide. He then asked Janina if there was any news regarding Sir Karamov. With a suggestive look, he asked if something had happened to the knight. Confused, she stared silently, not understanding his query. The other man laughed, calling it a senseless joke to suggest Karamov was hurt. She explained he was the strongest swordsman, an army unto himself. She concluded that it was impossible for anything to have happened to a man like him. He realized he'd been deceived, and that he was right to have poisoned him. Outside, he heard the sound of someone approaching. Arriving at the scene, Johann realized Gustav's troop had easily cleared everything. On the battlefield, an elven knight surveyed the bodies of defeated enemies. Approaching, the knight asked if they had just arrived, mocking their slowness. The captain turned to the elf, retorting that he might be a slow dwarf. Smiling, he added that unlike them, Johann was a noble. He then threatened to crush the elf's pointy ears if he didn't show respect. Tension filled the air. Johann realized elves and dwarves didn't get along. Interruption the fight, he asked Captain Kumal to stop, and the captain apologized. Johann then asked a knight if there had been combat and where everyone went. The knight replied that Gustav and the elves fought valiantly and cleared the area. He continued, saying they were now chasing remaining bandits into the forest. Pursuing fleeing enemies, the knights advanced into the dark woods. The knight then announced that all spoils and prisoners belonged to the elves. The captain told them to keep the loot, as his troops had already been well compensated. Watching the scene, Johann realized something about the whole situation felt very wrong. He recalled the bandits had annihilated over 500 mercenaries, yet were defeated easily here. With a keen eye, he observed the battlefield remnants. Looking at the forest ahead, he realized the location was perfect for an ambush. The captain asked the elf if he had scouted the forest. The elf denied it. Certainty in his eyes, Johann realized the bandits had retreated on purpose. Looking over the field, he understood it was all one big trap. The captain ordered the horn to keep sounding so the elves would have no excuses. Riding hard, Johann shouted for Captain Kumal to wait a moment before advancing. With a yell, he ordered an immediate shift to defensive formation. The captain said attacking an empty forest seemed like a massive exaggeration on Johann's part. Johann explained that if enemies were present, the terrain put them at a severe disadvantage. Denying the captain, he argued they couldn't treat these bandits like common thieves. Urgently, he shouted they needed to confirm the threat before advancing. The captain grumbled that the idea was absurd, and Johann was completely crazy. He added that if they fired and nothing was there, the elves would humiliate them. Johann replied he would trade his honor for their lives as many times as necessary. Irritated by the response, the captain just grumbled and watched the knight. Back on his horse, Johann heard the captain accept his suggestion. Smiling, he thought about how he had managed to convince the captain to follow the plan. With a shout, the captain ordered the entire army into defensive formation. Troops positioned themselves, raising shields and preparing for combat. A large metal shield was driven into the ground to reinforce the defense. Archers readied themselves, receiving orders to aim at the surrounding forests. Dwarves with cannons also took position, aiming for the forest ahead. Giving the command to fire, the captain initiated the attack against the suspicious woods. Multiple projectiles struck the trees, exploding amidst the dense vegetation. Inside, one of the enemies managed to protect himself from the attacks with his armor. With the ambush confirmed, an elven knight questioned what was happening. Even one of the dwarves wondered if they had really been setting a trap. Emerging from the trees, an enormous creature with red eyes appeared, revealing the true threat. In a flashback, he asks if they've ever heard of the bullhead mercenaries. One replies yes, they are infamous within mercenary circles. The other adds they're even pricier than the wolves of Aquitaine. Looking serious, he demands they tell him everything they know. They explain the group is shrouded in secrecy and doesn't take just any contract. Their movements resemble a herd of raging bulls advancing non-stop. They charge straight through the center of the enemy formation. One asks if they will face that group tomorrow. Johann confirms it. He states the enemy isn't a band of thieves, but elite mercenaries. The man suggests Johann Eitz withdraw from the battle against them. With a worried look, he advises avoiding direct confrontation at all costs. He asks why. The man says they won't stand a chance. Revealing a rumor, he claims these mercenaries can command minotaurs in battle. Touching his chin, he remembers hearing that story as a child. The legend referred to a minotauro, known as the Hero Slayer. He continues, saying every warrior who challenged it was slaughtered. Clenching his fist, one tells Johann not to worry about the threat. Slapping his back, he says they'll risk their lives to ensure his retreat. With a slight smile, Johann hears the proposal from the two men before him. He then says he was planning to ask for their assistance in the battle anyway. Excited, they say they'd also like to see these bullheads. Looking serious, he says he values them, but wants to ask for something else. Confused, they ask what else he could possibly want from them. Back in the forest, the enemies notice the formation change and question it. Looking up at the sky, they see a rain of arrows heading their way. Struck by arrows, the ambushers are caught off guard by the attack. With the ambush revealed, the leader shouts for the mercenaries to prepare to attack. One mercenary stomps the ground hard, readying for imminent combat. Looking ahead, he prepares to lead the advance against the troops. Riding hard, he advances, ignoring the arrows striking him. Making a signal, he readies to lead the assault. Shouting, he orders his troops to move and advance into battle. The dwarves fire their cannons, creating a massive explosion of fire and smoke. Amidst the smoke, the mercenaries continue to advance without retreating. With heavy steps, enemy troops march toward Marcel's army. Their formation doesn't break, advancing in an organized and relentless manner. On the battlefield, The mercenaries with bull helms reveal themselves. With a war cry, one raises his axe to lead the attack. The army of bull-helmed mercenaries advances in attack formation. On the other side, Marcel's troops observe the enemy army's advance. The captain realizes those are the legendary bullhead mercenaries. Even prepared, he realizes the situation is spiraling out of control and he must act. Turning to the captain, he warns him to prepare for imminent impact. Shouting, he says he will deal with their attack formation at any cost. Surprised, the captain screams his name, warning it's dangerous to go alone. Riding, Johann advances alone toward the approaching enemy lines. The captain shouts for all soldiers to pay attention to what is happening. He says the enemies want to test their strength in the coming battle. Riding on, he approaches the enemy army to initiate his surprise attack. Seeing a lone knight approach, the enemies wonder if he is completely crazy. Their leader says if he is that desperate, they will grant his wish. Blowing past them, he attacks one enemy with a quick, deadly strike. Surprised by the attack, they shout to stop that knight at all costs. A leader shouts to maintain formation and not be shaken by the attack. Realizing the strategy, he says the knight is trying to break the ranks. Riding along, he realizes the enemies have already understood what he's trying to do. The captain shouts, invoking the sacred beard of the dwarves to motivate his troops. Yelling, he orders the front lines to prepare to break the defense. Seeing the armies clash, he prepares for the peak of the great battle. With a war cry, the captain orders them to smash the enemies' heads. Attacking, a mercenary hits a dwarf's shield squarely. The impact of the blow breaks the defensive formation and throws the dwarves backward. Seeing the breach, the leader shouts for his men to advance and kill with honor. The confrontation intensifies, with both sides exchanging blows on the battlefield. Observing the combat, the mercenary leader continues his relentless advance. With a shout, the captain runs to face the approaching enemy. The captain blocks the enemy's attack, stopping the blow with his hammer. Using strength, he manages to push the enemy back with his axe. Falling to the ground, the mercenary is surrounded by other dwarven soldiers. Seeing the situation, his companions prepare to help the fallen soldier. With a shout, the captain lifts his hammer and strikes the ground. The shock of his hammer meeting another dwarf's axe creates sparks. He shouts for his soldiers to bathe their weapons in enemy blood. Watching the scene, Johann comments that they don't need to worry about that side. With a smile, he turns and prepares for his own confrontation. Riding hard, he advances for a direct confrontation with the Minotaur on the field. Galloping at full speed, his horse carries him straight into the heart of the battle. Spotting his approach, one of the mercenaries yells that the knight is closing in. Their leader, Numeros, demands to know what kind of idiot dares to challenge him without a sword. A soldier claims he's trying to break their formation, and the leader curses him out. Just then, one soldier volunteers to deal with the knight in the leader's place. Numeros agrees, saying he'll give the man a chance to face him in battle. Centurion Numeros of the mercenary company watches as the knight draws nearer. Announcing he has permission, the soldier shouts that he's going to end the knight, but he gets hit square in the face by a fast, unexpected blow. Two other soldiers are also struck by quick, precise attacks. Looking back, the enemies wonder how that soldier lost so quickly. The lone knight continues riding through the battlefield after the attack. Grinning, he realizes there really is a minotaur on the field. He remembers the warning that the rumors about the creature were true. Shouting at the beast, he asks if it's the leader of the mercenaries. With a firm voice, the minotaur orders the knight to get off his horse. Confused, the knight wonders why it's saying that all of a sudden. The minotaur explains that the horse might get hurt when the knight is torn to pieces. Saying he likes the horse, he tells the knight to get down and fight. Dismounting, he agrees it's best the horse doesn't get hurt in the battle. Gripping his weapon, he warns that if he wins, he'll turn the Minotaur's tail into soup. With a shout, he challenges him to combat, leaving the Minotaur confused. The mercenary leader just stares silently, not understanding the taunt. With a confident smile, the knight prepares for the start of the great confrontation. He then advances quickly toward his opponent on the battlefield. With a roar of fury, the Minotaur also charges into the fight. Raising its axe, the Minotaur attacks with all its strength. Dodging the blow, the knight jumps over the enemy to counterattack. Landing on the ground, he spins around, ready for the next move. Roaring, the Minotaur turns, ready to strike again with its axe. Dodging the blow, the knight gets clear of the attack at the very last second. Moving sideways, he continues to evade the attacks with agility. Eyes wide, he realizes the insane reach of the enemy's attacks. Spinning its axe, the Minotaur creates a whirlwind, forcing Johann back. Attacking again, Johann knows if he's hit, his body will be split in two. Sliding across the ground, he manages to dodge another powerful attack. With a frustrated look, he regrets not bringing his other weapon to the battle. Irritated, the Minotaur yells at him to stop dodging and fight for real. Leaping into the air, the Minotaur attacks from above, claiming it will give him a worthy death. Crouching low, he spots an opening to counterattack his opponent. With a quick movement, he lunges to exploit the gap in the enemy's defense. Using his weapon, he strikes the Minotaur precisely in a weak spot. The attack hits home, breaking part of the Minotaur's tail with the impact. Seeing the attack, the other mercenaries react with surprise and cover their eyes. Foaming at the mouth, The Minotaur stares at Johann with a look of pure fury. With its weapon dropped, the Minotaur seems disadvantaged in the fight. Panting, it prepares for the next attack, its body covered in sweat. The two opponents stare at each other, gasping, catching their breath to continue. With a shout, the knight jumps onto the Minotaur, saying it's time to end the fight. Elsewhere, troops advance to break the horns of their enemies. Their leader shouts for them to crush the useless foes with all their might. The knight announces the time has come and asks God for forgiveness for what they are about to do. Then he drinks a blue potion, preparing for a new phase of the battle. Seeing the change, one enemy wonders what is happening. Another screams that they are the knights of the Galanto Monastery, now transformed. With Berserker mode activated, the knights advance with newfound strength. One of them cuts an enemy in half with a quick swing of his sword. With a focused gaze, the knight prepares for the next attack. An enemy jumps, yelling that he will crush the transformed knight. The knight defends against the attack, blocking the blow with his sharp sword. With a determined look, one of the female knights prepares to attack. Leaping, she strikes the enemy with a fast, powerful blow. Landing, she tells Brother Agante to get up, for many need him. He replies that the screams are their hymns, and the light will be with them. A mercenary shouts for the troops not to retreat under any circumstances. He claims Lord Numeros will finish off the knight and join them soon. With a quick strike, the Minotaur's helmet is shattered in the battle. Johann's weapon approaches the enemy's face for the final blow. Terrified, the Minotaur just stares at the weapon, unable to react to the attack. The knight asks if the enemy has any last words before dying. With a single blow, he defeats the Minotaur, the slayer of heroes. The other mercenaries watch in silent shock at their leader's defeat. Begging for his life, the Minotaur apologizes for talking so much trash. Fearful, he says killing him won't do anything for the knight's honor. He reveals he's not a pure-blood Minotaur, trying to save himself. Confused, the knight asks what the Minotaur means by that. The creature explains he's a half-Minotaur and won't yield any achievement points. Holding his weapon, the knight just stares, not understanding the enemy's logic. Walking away, he says he has no idea what he's talking about regarding achievements. With a shout, he calls the hornblower over to him on the field. He orders the man to send a message to the battle's front lines. Looking at the soldiers, he tells him to announce they have been completely defeated. Seeing the fear in the enemy's eyes, the Minotaur realizes it's all over. Pointing at him, Johann says he will be his emergency stake in the future. He warns him that he will be a witness, and had better tell the truth. Confused and scared, the Minotaur just stares, unable to grasp the situation. One soldier yells not to retreat, that Lord Numeros will join them. Suddenly, the sound of a horn echoes and he wonders what it is. With wide eyes, he refuses to believe his leader has been defeated. The captain approaches and says their commander was defeated by the knight. The captain yells for the hornblower to sound the victory call. Back at the guild, the tranquility of the day continues in the city of Marseille. The manager informs the governor that the subjugation force has won its first victory. Smiling, he says he heard the elf knights fought well. She reveals that, unfortunately, they lost contact with the elf knights. Surprised, the governor stands up from his chair, shocked by the unexpected news. He wonders how elf knights could be defeated by a bunch of bandits. She explains they weren't ordinary bandits, but a disguised mercenary company. She then places a document on the table for the governor to read. Asking him to read it, she says the document just arrived for him. Reading the letter, he discovers that everything was controlled by Baron Einbeck. She asks if he is referring to the Minotaur that led the mercenary company. He wonders if they managed to capture the Minotauro alive during the battle. With a confident smile, she just looks at him without giving a direct answer. The governor stands up and says only one person would be capable of such a feat. Back on the field, Johann observes the surrendered enemies, victorious in the battle. Hearing his name, he turns to see who is calling him across the camp. The young woman and the mage welcome him. He asks her to calm down. The mage notes they've traveled far and deserve a good rest. Excitedly, the young woman says she heard all about his battle. Covering his face, he asks her not to exaggerate her praise. Smiling, she insists she isn't exaggerating at all. The captain joins in, saying Sir Johann deserves every bit of praise. He continues, adding that the sight of him charging the enemy inspired them all. Approaching, he declares Johann's courage an example for everyone. Johann smiles, saying he appreciates the sentiment, despite the exaggeration. The captain also praises Johann's strategic mind, which left them awestruck. Just then, the sacred knights arrive, exchanging blessings. They say they would have fallen into the ambush if not for Sir Johann. The female knight says they were impressed by his character in sparing the enemy. Smiling, he replies, there was no reason to kill the Minotaur. She notes that facing it head-on would have been nearly impossible for them. Looking away, she says that even though it surrendered, an ordinary knight would have killed it to claim the title of Hero Slayer for themselves. Smiling, she notes that Sir Johann didn't stoop to that level. With a slight smile, he says, respecting an enemy's life is a virtue. Clasping his hands, He says he let it live because he thought it best. The mage interrupts, asking if he has any idea how many he actually killed. Whispering, the mage says excessive humility embarrasses the one giving praise. Understanding, Johann says he will then accept the praise with full gratitude. The captain orders them to reorganize their strategy and crush Baron Einbeck. Just then, a knight approaches, and they ask if someone is there. Watching the tent, they wait to see who emerges. Suddenly, an elven knight stumbles out of the tent, panting and badly wounded. Seeing his state, they doubt he brings news of victory. Collapsing to the ground, the knight cannot stand. Completely exhausted. Urgently, he begs for reinforcements to be sent immediately. He reveals they were ambushed by a troll while pursuing in the forest. Cutting to the forest, the dark environment shows signs of an intense battle. The ground is covered in footprints and marks of the fight that occurred there. A soldier splashes through water, running to escape the threat pursuing them. Running through the water, men try to escape the attacking knights. Terrified, bandits flee in despair from the pursuing elven knights. Mounted on horses, the knights advance to hunt down the fleeing enemies. A knight attacks a bandit, hitting him with a quick, precise strike. The blow throws the bandit far, and he splashes into the water on impact. The attack continues, and the knights easily cut down the enemies in the water. Observing the scene, the knight moves away, leaving the bodies behind. One knight comments that the battle is too easy for them. Another says they are only here to settle an old debt. He reminds them that Count Bartok sent them to pay the debt to the guild. A knight tells them to continue the pursuit and gather the spoils. Shouting, the leader addresses all troops to give the order. He orders them to pursue and annihilate the enemy retreating into the forest. Then he yells to loot everything valuable from the enemies. A knight warns that anyone caught stealing will be severely punished. The troops advance through the water, following orders to continue the pursuit. The leader watches his troops advance, satisfied with the battle's progress. Mounted, he says to take a short break and check equipment. One knight comments he didn't know a place like this existed. Another says the place is spooky, perfect for a bandit hideout. Stepping into the water, he prepares to continue exploring the area. One points into the distance, saying someone is coming their way. Watching the figure, they wonder if it's one of their own soldiers. The wounded knight approaches, and they ask what happened to him. Before falling, he reaches out and asks for help, right before being struck. Swords in hand, the knights prepare for the emerging threat. Frightened, one asks what that suddenly appearing creature is. Before them, a gigantic creature rises, ready for combat. With a roar, the creature bares its sharp teeth at the knights. Fallen, the knight says they fell straight into the enemy's trap. He realizes it was bait, and that there was no mention of trolls in the letter. With a wounded face, he says 3 of his knights are still there. Begging, he asks them to help the knights left behind. The captain turns to the others and asks what they think of the situation. The female knight says she will leave the decision for Lord Kummel to make right then. He then asks Valiant if she can tell them more about trolls. She reveals she fought a troll before and managed to win the battle. She continues, saying that without divine intervention, it would be an impossible fight. Explaining, she says their skin is harder than stone, and their muscles too. Furthermore, their brute strength makes it impossible for a human to resist. The most terrifying part is the monster's regeneration ability. She says even if you manage to pierce them, the wound heals instantly. Sweating, the knight says it's impossible to defeat such a creature. Another yells for him not to just stand there, and to run as fast as possible. With worried looks, Johann and the knight listen to the soldier's report. He begs for help, saying they are running out of time. The knight asks if she would be willing to go if Lord Kummel ordered it. She replies that even if they leave now, they probably won't arrive in time. Eyes wide, the elven knight faces the harsh reality of the situation. The captain addresses the elven soldier, preparing to give his answer. Hand on his chest, he apologizes, but says he cannot send a rescue. Explaining the decision, he says the mission isn't over, and he cannot guarantee safety. Without turning, the captain just listens to what the elf has to say. With a shout, Johann declares that he himself will rescue the knights who stayed behind. Grabbing his arm, the elf says this isn't a simple matter. Johann says that with so many warriors, his absence won't make much difference to the mission. The captain argues there's no point in going now, and he will put himself in danger. Johann turns and asks what would happen if the knights were still alive. With a serious look, he says he can't just stand there and watch them die. With determination, he yells that even if only one is alive, it's reason enough to try. Impressed by his attitude, the knights look at Johann with great admiration. Kneeling, he asks Commander Kummel for permission to go on the rescue. Taking a deep breath, the captain prepares to give his final answer. Pointing at him, the captain says Johann never ceases to surprise him. The young woman comments to the mage about the noble soul Sir Johann possesses. With his back turned, the mage says his intentions are quite clear to him. He thinks that if they arrive quickly, maybe they can save the knights. He then remembers that elves are rich and he might get a reward. Back at the hideout, a man burns a letter. He announces that the elves fell into their trap. A hooded figure sitting at the table watches the scene, chuckling. He remarks that once the elves are wiped out, Relations between Marcel and Orangs are finished. Another figure interrupts. It's too soon to celebrate. She reveals that the mercenaries surrendered, despite all the gold invested. Furiously, she wonders how they could just give up the fight. The Baron dismisses them as disposable pawns. The mage challenges him. Glancing at a letter, she spots the Baron's family crest on the seal. He reassures her. His real plan lies elsewhere. He then asks about the status of Countess Janina's troll. The Baron tells her she worries too much, claiming he heard trolls are weak. Smiling, she asks why he thinks she placed the troll there. Another man agrees, realizing there's nothing to worry about. She declares they will meet their end in the depths of the dark abyss. Meanwhile, in the dark forest, the damp gloom creates a dangerous atmosphere. A lantern is lit. A knight comments on how well it burns. He asks the name of the fire they are using. The female knight replies that it's divine magic called the Flame of Hyena. She explains it's mainly used to repel monsters. He asks if she used it to take down the troll during the battle. She confirms that troll regeneration can be halted by divine magic. Staring at the lantern, he asks if it differs from normal fire. She explains that once lit, water cannot extinguish it. Sweating, he realizes it's literally white phosphorus. He praises the knight, calling her impressive in many ways. Smiling, she attributes it to daily training. Relieved, he admits he was worried and is glad to have them along. He grins, noting they won't have to hunt trolls the hard way. Tapping his head, he figures the trolls are probably hiding out somewhere. Meanwhile, the elf leader yells at his troops never to hide. He bellows orders to cut off the monster's breath and reclaim their honor. Gritting its teeth, the troll snarls at the surrounding knights. Outside, Johan's animal barks, sensing something. Johan remarks that Karamov seems to have found something, surprising the mage. 3 armored horses bolt through the forest, shocking the group. The female knight wonders why the elves' mounts are alone. In the distance, a cry of pain echoes through the silent woods. Turning, the male knight realizes their prediction was wrong. The elves are still fighting. She smiles. That's good. It means they're alive. She states the current flame won't be enough. She needs to prepare a stronger one. Shouting, he declares he'll ride ahead to buy time. Surprised, she tries to stop him, saying that's not what she intended. As he rides off, he orders Karamov to round up the stray horses. Watching him go, she yells out for Sir Johan, worried by his decision. She then orders her sisters to focus and create a stronger flame. Driving her sword into the ground, the knight prepares for the ritual. Kneeling, she prays for Saint Hyena's blessing in battle. Gathering around the flame, she speaks of souls yearning for salvation. With precious swords united, they call upon the sacred fire to guide the lost. Elsewhere, a knight takes a direct hit from the troll. Splash running through the water, he advances to stay in the fight. The troll turns, readying to attack the approaching knight. It attempts a powerful strike, but the knight dodges. Using his sword, he manages to sever the creature's arm with a single blow. He spins, preparing another attack with his sharp blade. Sweating, he realizes the gravity of his situation. The troll's arm regenerates instantly, and it snarls furiously at the knight. Shocked, he stammers that it's impossible as he watches the creature heal. With a roar, the troll charges to attack the knight with full force. He declares it's not over yet, bracing himself to continue fighting. But seeing the fallen soldiers, he realizes troop morale is broken. Exhausted, he senses his companions can't hold out much longer. He decides his only option is to maintain a stalemate with the creature. A splashing noise breaks the momentary silence. He turns and yells at Lauren, asking what he's doing. Apologizing, Lauren confesses he can't handle the pressure of the battle anymore. He begs Gustav to get them out of there. Gustav snaps back at him not to talk nonsense. Snarling, the troll turns to attack the approaching knight. It raises its massive arm, preparing to crush him with a single blow. Screaming, the knight braces for the final attack from the creature that cornered him. But instead of the killing blow, something clangs against his helmet, and he winces. Looking up, he realizes he wasn't the one struck. With a surprised look, he sees the changed battlefield. A spear has pierced the troll's chest, wounding it severely. Staggering backward, the troll questions the spear sticking out of its chest. Terrified, the soldiers wonder how a mere spear could penetrate the troll's hide. One of them turns and desperately screams Sir Gustav's name. Riding in, Johan yells at them not to just stand there. With an urgent shout, he orders everyone to flee immediately. Back at the guild, night deepened over the city of Marseille. In his office, the governor read a letter while the manager observed him. He wondered if this was a ghost letter that had just arrived. The letter stated that the men of the mercenary group were demanding the gate. The manager remarked that this had Einbeck's finger on it, and the governor agreed. He remembered the mercenary group sent on that mission. They were the first subjugation force dispatched to deal with bandits, but elite mercenaries had been waiting for them, and they were annihilated. He realized the Baron had used a fake seal to forge the letter. Concluding, he declared the letter was a plan to breach their defenses. With a smile, she agreed with the governor's analysis of the situation. She said they would deal with it tomorrow at sunrise. The governor noted they were finally thinking alike on the matter. Under the moon, He vowed that no threat would pass the walls of Marcel. Meanwhile, someone prayed in a tent for a blessing to sanctify him. A young woman prayed that profane claws and fangs wouldn't harm him. The mage interrupted, asking if she was worried about Johann. With a serious look, the mage turned to talk to the young woman. She insisted that trolls weren't enemies humans could easily defeat. He agreed, saying it would normally take a legion to bring down a troll. Reassuring her, he said there was no need to worry about that. He reminded her that her master possessed both waters of the river Yahello. She remembered the waters of wrath and blessing he had received. Out on the field, a spear floated on the water, surrounded by the bodies of soldiers. The spear, bathed in the water of wrath, could deal a fatal blow. With a shout, Johann prepared to attack the troll with the spear. He believed Johann would know how to use the spear wisely in battle. Shouting, Johann ordered Sir Gustav to retreat the troops from that location. Riding hard, he charged through the water to face the troll with his spear. He realized he could still pierce the troll's hide, but there was a problem. He knew the troll would regenerate, and that he needed to buy time to escape. With a fixed gaze, he readied himself for the next phase of the battle. One of the knights charged forward, yelling that it was their only chance to finish it. Angrily, Johann shouted for the knight not to advance against the troll. Another knight yelled for Leon to fall back, but he didn't heed the warning. Yelling, Leon declared that if one human could do it, they could also defeat the troll. He attacked, but was hit squarely by the creature's powerful blow. The impact flung him far away, and he crashed into the water. Spitting blood, he felt the full force of the strike that had connected. Johann yelled in anger, saying they had come there to save them. The troll yanked the spear from its chest, preparing to attack again. The wound on its chest began to regenerate rapidly, closing the hole. The troll threw the spear into the water and readied for its next move. Gripping the spear, Johann prepared to attack the troll with all his strength. With a battle cry, he charged into combat, ready to face the creature. Riding hard, he advanced through the water to distract the troll and save the others. The troll turned toward him, and Johann commanded it to keep its eyes on him. He thought it would be enough if Gustav and the soldiers managed to escape. With a shout, he attacked the troll, which turned to counterattack. Streaking past the troll, he managed to wound the creature's leg with his spear. Seeing the attack connect, the troll realized its mobility was hampered for a moment. Johann tried to pull away, but the troll snatched him up before he could escape. Yelling, one of the knights watched the scene in despair and worry. Being held fast, Johann was thrown far by the troll's powerful attack. With wide eyes, he realized the troll had gotten too close. Launched into the air, he felt the impact of the blow on his body. Back at the camp, the empty field awaited the return of the troops. In the distance, a light flared up, catching the attention of those in the camp. Looking at the lights, one of the guards wondered what it was. Using binoculars, he tried to see what was happening in the distance. He wondered if the subjugation force was returning to the city. Seeing the flag, he realized it was the mercenary group arriving. Terrified, he wondered if they were ghosts, since the group had been annihilated. He realized this was exactly what the governor had predicted earlier. An alert sounded, and guards gathered on the walls to protect the gate. Hearing the sound, the governor said calmly that they had finally arrived. The manager said she would send a letter to confirm the commander's identity. A voice said that wouldn't be necessary, and the door suddenly opened. Surprised, they turned to see who had entered the office unannounced. A man stepped in and asked why they looked like they'd seen a ghost. Looking at the man, he turned to introduce himself to the two. He said he came personally since they were looking for the commander. Shocked, the manager screamed, asking how they could be alive standing there. With a smile, the man stated he needed to say the glory belonged to the Empire. The governor realized the mercenary group had been bought by Baron Einbeck. Hands covering her face, she wondered how such a thing was possible. The commander declared that from that moment on, the city of Marcel was taken. Teeth clenched tight, Johann felt the pain of the blow that struck him. Screaming, one of the knights watched the scene in despair and horror. Johann's body was flung into the water by the troll's powerful blow. The impact of his body hitting the water created a massive wave at the site. Seeing the scene, the knights yelled Sir Johann's name, shocked by the attack. With a sweaty face, the knight just watched, unable to react to what happened. Amidst the darkness, he smiled, even with his face covered in blood. Floating in the water, Johann's body appeared lifeless following the troll's attack. Holding the flag, a soldier readies himself for the night attack. At a signal, a torch flares to life, lighting up the darkness. Smiling, a man remarks that the fools in Marcel are doing exactly as predicted. Watching the lights, he says it doesn't matter, they're getting in anyway. A guard runs by, yelling for everyone to get to the wall immediately. He says the bribed guard is opening the sewer gate for them. Opening the passage, the traitorous guard waits for them to begin the invasion. Shouting, he declares his loyalty to the sacred empire that bought him. He is then struck by a quick, unexpected blow from behind. Another guard claims the glory for the emperor after eliminating the traitor. With a cold look, he turns to continue the invasion plan. The guard reports that the bribed traitor has been duly eliminated. The group leader, Bradil, observes the scene, ready for the next step. He states the Empire has no use for those who betray for a few coins. Before his troops, he announces that from this moment on, Marcel is theirs. He orders them to capture the captain while the other guards are distracted. Advancing with the other soldiers, he says they are looking for the consul. With a serious look, the governor asks the consul not to look at him like that. The man says they will let the governor keep his title and authority. Angrily, the manager shouts that they can't trust him after the attack. Clapping slowly, he says he expected nothing less from Lady Eon, praising her spirit. He warns her not to test his patience further, as time is running out. Revealing the situation, he states the captain of the guard has already been captured. He says what they want is simple, and approaches the governor's desk. Placing a paper on the table, he prepares to give the final order. He demands the governor write a single order for the subjugation force. The order is for all forces to cease combat and surrender to the enemy. Furthermore, he demands an oath of loyalty to his imperial majesty. He says if he does this, he won't need to dirty his hands with blood. Meanwhile, Johann's body continues floating in the water, apparently lifeless. The knight advances to face the troll, trying to buy time for the others. With clenched teeth, the troll snarls, preparing for the imminent attack. The leader of the knights calls for Laurent, ready to give his order. He orders them to take Leon and the other men and get out of there immediately. One of the knights says he will stay and fight alongside Gustave. He shouts for them to help Leon up and get out fast. Hand on his face, he turns to give the final command. Surprised, the knight just stares at him, not understanding the leader's decision. He yells that it's not a request, but an order from his superior. With a shout, the knight watches Gustave advance to face the troll. Raising his sword, he shouts for the monster to come and face him in battle. Shouting, he asks the monster to give him an honorable death. The troll opens its mouth, preparing to attack the knight with everything it has. In the water, Johann's body begins to move, showing signs of life. He remembers a piece of advice: never fight opponents you cannot beat. He also remembers the advice to kill enemies and not die in battle. Opening his eyes, he apologizes to his master, saying he has reached his limit. Blood spreads through the water, and he slowly sinks into darkness. Amidst the bodies, he feels his body no longer move. Eyes closed, he accepts his fate, tired of fighting for life. Looking back on the past, he sees his life full of pain and suffering pass by. His heart finally feels like it's going to stop, and he just wishes to rest. His heartbeats slow down, and peace seems to approach slowly. In the darkness, a figure approaches and kisses him, bringing him back. With a scream, he refuses to accept death and prepares to fight. Clenching his fist, he remembers his master's advice for battle. The words echo in his mind, giving him new strength to continue. Attacking, he prepares to face death head-on on the battlefield. Shouting, he decides that if he cannot escape, he will kill death itself. His heart beats strongly again, driven by a new determination. Bursting from the water, he screams that if he cannot escape, he will kill death itself. With a determined cry, he readies himself to face the troll with everything he has. The knight advances to attack the troll, which prepares for a counterattack. Shouting, he says he will fight for his honor and for errants with all his might. Johann's spear speeds toward the approaching troll. The troll tries to defend itself, but the spear hits it squarely in the chest. With a roar of pain, the troll feels the impact of the spear on its body. The knight falls to the ground, and the troll is thrown backward by the blow. Shocked by the scene, the knight desperately screams Gustave's name. Emerging from the water, Johann appears, surprising the other knights watching him. With a cold look, he tells the elves to get out of his way immediately. Back at camp, a soldier reports that Marcel City has finally fallen. The Baron shouts in celebration at the news of victory. Laughing, he says everything went exactly according to his original plan. The mage reminds him the battle isn't over yet, and he agrees. With a cold stare, he announces that Villaco and Jan will soon be executed. The other man calls it absurd for merchants to meddle in politics. He declares he will gather all the merchants and purify Marcel City. That way, every guild on the continent will realize the Empire's power. Snapping his fingers, he prepares to give the next order. Drinks are served so they can toast their hard-won victory. Raising his glass, he claims that gold cannot buy noble blood or honor. Smiling, the mage proposes a toast to the long life of the Sacred Empire. They toast together, celebrating the victory and the success of the invasion plan. The man states he will personally deliver the good news to the Emperor. With a determined look, the Baron tells him to make sure the Emperor knows. In the dark forest, a man walks alone, a plan in mind. He calls Einbeck a fool who won't report the news the way he wants. Deciding to craft a creative report, he continues his path through the woods. Stopping, he wonders why there are horses so deep in the forest. He realizes they belong to the knights defeated in the battle. Calming a horse, he prepares to mount and head out. Mounted, he says he'll reach the capital in no time with this ride. With a shout, he takes off at high speed, riding through the dark forest. Suddenly, the horse stops, and he wonders why. In the distance, a growl echoes through the woods, spooking both horse horse and rider. Eyes wide, he senses the presence of a dangerous creature. From the shadows, a creature with glowing eyes emerges, snarling at him. Elsewhere, the elven knights curse, saying he's in the way. With a growl, the troll prepares to continue battling the knights. One knight asks if it's right to let the human knight fight alone. Another knight says they've already attacked the troll dozens of times, but it only screamed in pain when hit by the spear. The leader says if they join in, they'll just be dead weight. He decides that for now, they should just witness the knights' battle. With a determined look, Johann prepares to face the troll. He moves forward, and the troll attacks with a powerful strike into the water. The impact sends water spraying everywhere across the battlefield. He runs atop the water, agilely dodging the troll's attacks. With a shout, he readies his next attack against the creature. He throws a spear at the troll with all his might. Leaping, he throws multiple spears at once to attack the troll. The spears hit the troll squarely, piercing its body in several places. With a roar of pain, the troll staggers back, wounded by the attacks. Watching the scene, they realize it won't be enough for a fatal blow. Eyes shining, they wonder what Johann is planning. Running on the water, he charges to strike the troll. The troll attacks too, and they trade blows amidst the water. With one strike, he hits the troll squarely, showing his strength in battle. The impact throws the troll backward. Feeling the force of the attack, the troll recovers and prepares to counterattack with even greater force. Spitting blood, it snarls and readies for the next move in the fight. Shocked, the knights wonder if he's fighting with his bare hands. He advances, and the two exchange high-speed blows on the water. The troll is hit by multiple blows, severely injuring it in the battle. The troll attacks with eye beams, trying to hit Johann. Dodging, he lands a powerful blow right on the troll's face. His eye glowing, he prepares for the final attack against the monster. He lands a massive strike, knocking the troll back with the impact. The blow sprays water everywhere, demonstrating the strength of the attack. The troll is hit head-on, the attack leaving it stunned in battle. Roaring, the troll staggers backward, dazed by the blow it received. He leaps, preparing to attack the troll while it's still stunned. Landing on the troll's shoulders, he holds on to avoid falling into the water. Using his knees, he strikes the troll's head with a powerful blow. The impact cracks the troll's skull, gravely injuring it. The troll tries to shake him off, but he holds on firmly. Falling into the water, they both sink, continuing the fight beneath the surface. One of the knights asks Gustav if he can explain what happened. Yelling, the leader says it's their chance to retreat before the troll regenerates. Stepping on the troll, Johann prepares for the final blow against the creature. Scared, a knight asks what Lord Johann is doing right now. Opening the troll's mouth, he prepares to attack inside the creature. With a shout, he attacks the troll, which roars in pain from the blow. The troll's body thrashes in the water, feeling the impact of the attack. With gritted teeth, he continues the attack, determined to win the battle. With a shout, he uses all his strength to rip the troll's jaw off. The troll's body thrashes in the water, and blood spreads everywhere. The troll's jaw is completely torn off, and it roars in pain. Shocked, the knights scream, terrified by the scene they are witnessing. With a dirty face, he says that if he does things that way, the troll's body sinks into the water, defeated by Johann's brutal attack. Floating, the troll can no longer regenerate from the fatal wound it suffered. Karamov chases down the horses. The man screams, begging the creature to release him. Screaming, he thrashes wildly, trying to break free from the beast's grip. Terrified, he wonders if he's about to die in such a senseless way. Still screaming, he sees the danger closing in and braces for the absolute worst. Horrified cries erupt as the knights watch the scene unfold before their eyes. One knight rushes to another lying wounded on the ground. He remarks that if this is it would be an honorable end for a knight. His face grimy, he calls out to Leon, worried sick for his comrade. Spitting blood, Leon prepares to speak his final words to his friend. He asks Gustav to tell his father that he fought bravely in the battle. Tears filling his eyes, Gustav promises to deliver the message. His face masked in blood, Leon uses his remaining strength to thank his friend. He thinks of Gustav, Johann, and all his friends and brothers in arms. Weeping, Gustav screams Leon's name, mourning the loss of his friend. Johann just watches the scene silently, his face grave and weary. Holding the potion, he decides it's better to make the investment now. He walks over and calls to Leon, who stares back with a battered face. Offering the potion, he tells the knight to drink it to ease the pain. He tells the knight to shut up and drink the offered potion. With Johann's help, the wounded knight drinks the elixir to recover. A single drop of the potion spills, revealing the potent healing power of the red liquid. The empty flask hits the ground as the potion begins to take effect. The knight stands up, looking down at his fallen comrade. With eyes closed, Leon seems to have found peace after the battle. Johann steps back, telling the knight to rest in peace within the forest. The knight says his friend was like a brother to him. He turns and calls out to Sir Johann, his eyes brimming with tears. Weeping, he thanks him for easing Leon's pain in his final moments. He says that if it hadn't been for Johann, Leon would have suffered until the bitter end. Suddenly, Johann coughs, and the knights look at him with concern. Surprised, The knight asks what kind of medicine that was, as his pain has completely vanished. The other knight asks if Leon is okay. He replies that he feels cleansed. Smiling, Johann asks how it feels to be reborn. Confused, the knight holds up the flask and asks if this was the water of blessing. He explains that it is indeed the water of blessing, a mystical elixir from the river Yahello. His face flushed. Gustav approaches to speak with Johann, giving him a tight hug. He thanks Lord Johann for saving his friend. Smiling, he declares Johann the most honorable knight he has ever met. Johann insists the water was a gift and that he should thank Suderik instead. Smiling, Gustav says the credit belongs entirely to Johann for actually using it. Suddenly, Johann steps away, feeling something strange happening to his body. Pointing to the others, he shouts that Sir Johann saved their brother. He declares that as soldiers of Bartok, they must show their honor. They strike the ground with their spears, offering their respects and praise. Gustav shouts that the honor is for the great Sir Johann, while Johann just watches. Embarrassed, he admits he's never felt such pressure in his life. Smiling, Gustav says that Johann is now like a sworn brother to him. He warns that from now on, anyone who insults Johann will face his wrath. Wielding his sword, he prepares to defend his new sworn brother. He stands ready, positioning himself to protect Johann from any threat that might appear. Shouting, he declares that any enemy of Johann will have to answer to his sword. Smiling, Johann thanks Gustav for his loyalty and friendship. Clasping his hands together, he says it's a great honor to receive such praise. Back at the camp, the young woman runs to find Master Suderg. Celebrating, she reports that Sir Johann fought a troll and won the battle. The mage says he figured as much, assuming subjugation was possible through magic. She clarifies that he didn't use magic. He ripped the troll's mouth off with his bare hands. He smiles and nods, but then the truth dawns on him. Staring off into the distance, he just processes the scene, shocked by the revelation. Eyes wide, he shouts in surprise upon learning how Johann won. The knight says it's unbelievable what they just witnessed on the battlefield. She explains that the troll's muscles and ligaments were completely ruptured. Furthermore, all of its internal organs were destroyed by Johann's attack. Finally, the troll's entire jaw was ripped off during combat. Looking at the body, she concludes that it died because it couldn't regenerate. She turns and asks how he managed to keep the body so intact. The knight explains that they usually burn trolls to charcoal to defeat them. Surprised, he realizes the method for killing trolls is very different from what he thought. Smiling, she congratulates him on his great victory in battle. She says that from now on, the title of Troll Slayer will follow him. The knights offer to handle the distribution of the troll's body for him. She mentions he can sell the parts for a high price to the company. Looking at the troll's body, he remembers the word achievement. He realizes that upon defeating a strong enemy, a corresponding title is granted. Smiling, he celebrates his first achievement in this new world. Smiling, he remarks that his title is now Troll Slayer. One of the knights shouts that the monster followed the runaway horses. Smiling, the knight says that Johann's puppy brought the horses back. She tells everyone to calm down, insisting it's not a real monster. The man screams for help, and the creature releases him, letting him run to the group. Sword in hand, she shouts that that thing is definitely not a puppy. After the confusion dies down, the man is interrogated about why he was in the forest. She asks if he is a traveler, and if the wolf attacked him out of the blue. He confirms the story, saying that's exactly what happened. Johann questions him, calling it a lie and stating he is no traveler. With a nervous smile, the man asks if he can leave, as he has a long journey ahead. Gustav says he'd like to have a word with the man, and Johann agrees. He insists he's just a traveler, trying to talk his way out of the situation. With a swift motion, Gustav pins the man's hand to the ground with his sword. Screaming in pain, the man feels the blade mercilessly pierce his hand. Holding the man down, Gustav threatens to cut off his fingers one by one. Gritting his teeth, the man feels the pain and pressure of the interrogation. He reveals himself to be Lieutenant Brandon Mayhem of the Special Operations Unit. With the confession, Gustav confirms that Johann's intuition was right all along. Johann asks if he discovered anything else, and Gustav nods yes. He reveals that he found the location of Baron Einbeck's command post. With a determined look, he says they can end this battle if they catch him. A slight smile playing on his lips, he prepares for the next phase of the plan. He turns to Gustav and says he has a request. Shouting, he declares they need to launch a surprise attack using high-mobility troops. Gustav agrees, stating that his unit belongs to his human brother. Johann tells them to end the expedition with a single, decisive strike. Gustav shouts for everyone to prepare quickly for the surprise attack. A few hours later, the Baron's command base is located in the forest. With a roar, the cavalry advances, declaring it is time for the harvest. One of the guards wonders what noise he's hearing. Another shouts that it's the Elven Knights and a surprise attack. Yelling, Gustav orders them to find Einbeck and kill everyone else. The Baron's men flee in panic, shouting that they were told it would be safe here. Shocked, the mage watches the scene, unable to understand what's happening. She wonders how they survived, and if the troll was defeated. Deciding to flee, she runs, screaming for her imperial majesty in despair. With the enemies defeated, Johann states that everything is finally resolved. He approaches the Baron's tent, ready for the final confrontation. Gustav says the Baron is there, and that there is a gift waiting inside. Johann enters the tent, walking with steady, determined steps. A knight reports that the man inside confessed everything after a beating. His face filthy, he stares straight ahead, ready for whatever comes next. Head bowed, he silently watches the scene, deep in thought. Back in the city, the traitorous merchants are displayed in the public square. Reminiscing on the past, he recalls the moment he almost died in the water. Reaching under his cape, he prepares for the final confrontation. Terrified, the Baron screams, asking if he's a ghost come back to haunt him. Standing before the Baron, Johann calls him by name with a look of pure fury. Shouting, he declares he has finally come to judge him for his crimes. With the battle over, the camp is broken down. Everyone prepares to leave. The female knight confirms the bandits are finished and they are heading out now. Smiling, Johann tells them their service won't be forgotten. He waves goodbye to the knights who aided him in the fight. The elven cavalry moves on, leaving the battlefield behind. The infantry marches as well, following orders to withdraw. Sighing in relief that the fighting is done, one knight cleans his armor. He wonders how Johann Eitz is still breathing after being poisoned. Sweating, he questions if he really wasted the entire vial. Seeing Gustav beat the Baron, he wonders who those people are. And why are they following Johann like that? Turning around, the Baron demands to know what they're staring at. Do they want to die? His face sweaty, he thinks his plan was perfect. Everything should have worked out. Flashing back a few months, Gosen Castle in Eitz territory is shown. A wine goblet is knocked over, marking the start of a tragic event. The Baron, terrified by his situation, drops the cup. His face dirty, he says he hopes the Lord has been well. Lord Giesen stares at him seriously, ignoring the greeting. He asks if Baron Einbeck brought the war funds he owed. A young man lights the way for the Baron with a light staff. The youth hands a scroll to the Lord, who takes it suspiciously. Opening the scroll, he prepares to read the message. He is surprised to find the paper completely blank. Furious, he demands to know what the hell this is. Why is the Baron handing him a blank piece of paper? Bowing, the Baron claims the Emperor needs his help again. The Lord shouts at him to stop the nonsense. He won't be used. He fought in countless wars only to be cast aside. Enraged, he yells for the Baron to leave before he cuts him in half. The Baron asks Sir Gessen to just place his seal on the document. Holding the paper, the Lord listens intently to the proposal. The spilled wine symbolizes the reward for his loyalty. The Baron swears on his family name that the Emperor will reward him with a title. The Lord eyes the Baron seriously, distrusting the promise. He notes that 50 years have passed, yet Einbeck still holds on. With a quick movement, he stamps the blank document with his seal. He throws the sealed paper to the Baron, telling him to take it. The Lord warns that if the Baron steals his credit, he'll rip out his tongue. Grabbing the document, the Baron agrees to the condition. Holding the scroll, he ponders Sir Gessen's loyalty to the Empire. Smiling, he remarks that such loyalty will be a great help to the cause. Back in the city, the night continues as the Baron's plan unfolds. Looking at the letter, a man realizes it is clearly a conspiracy. Karamov, captain of the Imperial Guard, observes the scene seriously. He states the plan is to frame the northern families for treason. With an ironic look, he calls Baron Einbeck's plan sacred. The Baron asks if he senses poison in his words, or if it's just his imagination. Karamov says he's merely guessing the Baron's disgusting scheme. Smiling, he adds he didn't expect someone like him to come from that family. Furious, the Baron shouts at Karamov to watch his words. He asks if Karamov thinks he doesn't know what happened in the Northern Territory. He accuses him of massacring women and children, asking how he dares to speak. Screaming, he calls Karamov nothing but the Emperor's hunting dog. Grabbing him, Karamov asks how someone like the Baron dares to talk about honor. He swore to become the Emperor's sword and acts according to his orders. With a cold stare, he declares the Emperor's honor is his own. He tells the Baron, who survived on tricks, that they are nothing alike. With a snap of his fingers, he prepares to punish the Baron for his insolence. Coughing, the Baron falls to the floor, feeling the pain of the blow. Karamov warns that if he dares insult the orders again, he will be punished. Angry, the Baron claims this is all Karamov's fault and his plan. He remembers how the knight couldn't kill a single human. Face dirty, he prepares to continue with his plan. Smiling, he says that in the end, he will be the only one laughing. A soldier approaches, shouting about an emergency for Sir Johann. He reveals that the city of Marseille has been taken by traitor mercenaries. The city gate is closed, and the Empire's flag has been raised. The entire city is under the control of mercenaries allied with the Baron. Surprised, the mage, the young woman, and the captain react to the unexpected news. Shocked, the knights shout in disbelief that the city has been taken. With a serious look, Johann just observes the scene, plotting his next move. Laughing, the Baron prepares to give the next order to his men. With loud laughter, he celebrates the victory and the success of his plan. He continues to laugh, satisfied at having fooled everyone and conquered the city. The captain yells, asking what they think of this, stunned by the turnaround. He declares that Bradil, having captured the governor, will bring the surrender document. His eyes filled with hate, he states his first demand will be the body. He plans to sever his tendons and parade him through the empire as a trophy. Later, once he's served his purpose, he'll hang him from the gallows. For the final act of his vengeance, right at the end, he'll whisper into his ear that he was the one who killed his father. Back at the camp, they prepare to enter the city gate. As the gate opens, a figure emerges from the light, ready for a confrontation. The light catches his face, revealing his identity to everyone. The Baron smiles, declaring his victory, while Johann just stares at him. He runs forward, shouting that the plan worked exactly as intended. He demands they bring out the bastard who dared to challenge him. But then, Viako steps forward with a serious gaze, ready to face the Baron. The Baron's eyes widen in shock, stunned by his appearance. The governor and his men stand ready to face the Baron and his traitorous forces. The Baron screams, demanding to know why the governor is there. Outside, the knights wonder what is transpiring within the walls. The governor bows, thanking Sir Johann Eitz for his hard work. He acknowledges his efforts and congratulates him on his safe return from battle. Johann smiles, thanking him for the warm welcome. He insists it was all thanks to the mercenaries who assisted him. The previous night, Johann had met with Goran and Khan for a special request. Confused, they asked what else he could possibly need from them. He explained that Einbeck definitely knew Marcel's defense systems, meaning he could infiltrate the city whenever he chose. He ordered them to protect Governor Velako from that imminent threat. One of them remarked that their group wasn't anything special. Johann just gave them a thumbs up, saying he trusted them with the job, leaving the mercenaries wondering why Sir Johann was suddenly praising them. Baron Einbeck is captured by the guards, and his invasion plan utterly fails. The governor sternly declares that he will pay for all his crimes. Terrified, the Baron just stares, unable to speak a single word. As he's dragged away, he screams, demanding to know where Commander Bradil is. High on the wall, the Empire's flag is raised, symbolizing the conquest. A guard throws the flag down, marking the city's liberation. As the banner hits the ground, the victory bells begin to ring out. A man strums his lute, preparing to sing a new song. The musicians sing of the shadows that had fallen over the city of Marcel. The song tells of the traitorous mercenaries and the troll that attacked them. Flower petals rain down, celebrating the victory and the hero who saved them all. The lyrics proclaim that his brilliance shone like a star in the battle. Johann watches the celebration with a serious expression, surrounded by music and falling petals as the musicians name him the troll slayer of Marcel, Johann Eitz. The song likens his name and courage to a war hammer. They sing of Johann Eitz, the man who subdued a troll with his sheer strength, declaring he has already become a legend for his great deed. The mercenaries look out over the city, remarking that Sir Johann has truly brought peace to Marcel. They decide it's time to leave. Mercenaries like them would only get in the way during peacetime. One of them notes that now, at least, there will be no more deaths caused by bandits. The manager thanks Sir Johann for leading them through the difficult battle. Before they settle down to business, she offers him a cup of tea. Cup in hand, he asks if he can now request payment for the mission. She hands over the report detailing the mission reward and the division of loot. The reward for the subjugation mission is 40 silver coins. The indemnity for the mercenary group is another 30 silver coins. He's surprised, wondering why the amount is so high in comparison. She continues, explaining that next is the value from selling the monster's loot. The troll skin brought in 10 gold coins and 60 silver coins. The troll's blood and tendons yielded another 25 gold coins. Shocked, Johann spits out his tea. She asks if Sir Johann is all right. With wide eyes, he insists he's fine and asks for the total value. Bags of gold coins are displayed, representing the immense fortune he has acquired. She announces the total, 35 gold coins and 230 silver. He presses his lips together, trying to contain his emotion upon hearing the amount. Finally, he bursts out laughing, celebrating the small fortune he earned from the rewards of war.